First. People will not die. Source, Dian Publishing Base. The most soothing book about life and death after Japan's 311 tsunami. The Japanese book market hit in 2011 and has been a bestseller ever since, changing countless people's attitudes towards death. With his unique calmness and rationality, a doctor in the emergency room of Tokyo University explores the taboo topic in science step by step, whether the soul exists. He boldly inquired and comforted the living with the kind and human concern of a doctor. The sudden death of a loved one, the love that is too late to express, the apologies that cannot be spoken, the unfulfilled wishes, will torture you painfully. If life does go on another way, you will be able to let go of regrets and find the strength to live well. Get a glimpse of the biggest secret of life from the medical scene: people will not die. Near-death experiences of souls leaving the body, patients unconsciously jumping off buildings and unexpectedly coming back to life. In order to understand the complexity of life and countless incredible phenomena, the author has read many reports of near-death experiences in modern spiritual literature left by Western scientists, ranging from medicine, psychology, religion, and quantum physics, all the way to pursue the mystery of death, and gradually realize the truth that science cannot explain. Through these understandings, you will understand that life is not as simple as commonly imagined. The soul does exist. Strong love for mother, persistence in mountain climbing, confusion on how to survive. The author encountered a car accident and 2 mountain disasters. When his life was hanging by a thread, he heard the voice of another world and planted the seeds of his intention to see through life and death. After that, he became an emergency room physician. His career as a doctor allowed him to experience more death than ordinary people, and it also made him realize that death does not seem to really make everything return to dust. After that, his mother had an unexpected heart attack and died alone in the bathroom. He was filled with regrets. He repeatedly talked to his mother through a psychic. Unexpectedly, he would touch the unknown of life, get further involved in the spiritual realm, and come into contact with a power that is difficult to prove by science. Rethink Life and Death. This book will take you through the scene of life and death. Through the incomprehensible spiritual phenomena, scientific verification and review of spiritual literature, you will rethink life and death, so that the soul can be deeply purified and healed. Since death is not the end, we will be able to view life from a broader perspective and live and love with a more compassionate mind. The soul really exists. The Milan survey confirmed the existence of the soul. Richer, winner of the 1913 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, worked with many well-known scholars to conduct research on the materialization of the soul on the psychic Palladino, and found that the soul is not as visible to the naked eye, will bulge out of the curtain, and can even be touched by human hands. This is the famous Milan survey in history. Other participants include the famous Marie Curie. Successfully capturing the shape and appearance of the soul, Sir Crookes, the scientist who discovered the element thallium, investigated the appearance of the guardian spirit Katie King. At first, Katie King only showed her face on the curtain. After many experiments, the range of her body gradually expanded, and finally she appeared as a beautiful woman with her whole body. Later, with Katie King's permission, Sir Crookes took 44 photos of her. In addition, Jazz also felt the pulse on Katie King's wrist, and even put his ear close to her chest to clearly hear her heartbeat, 75 beats per minute. The liberation of black slaves. Thanks to the help of psychics, former U.S. President Lincoln was influenced by the president's wife who believed in spirituality. He had many contacts with psychic meetings and often listened to mysterious revelations from psychic meetings. Legend has it that on the day the Emancipation Proclamation was announced in 1861, when Lincoln was still hesitant during the debate among the various factions in Congress, the president's wife invited Maynard, a well-known psychic who was in Washington at the time, into the White House and summoned Lincoln. The late politician Webster, who had always been respected, came to the scene to explain his own experience. After Webster's strong advice, Lincoln decisively issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Chapter 1: Between Life and Death. My journey to practice medicine. The life-threatening accident in childhood / a white-robed doctor who traveled to various academies of sciences. The battle scene between life and death. Dignity and pain. A tug-of-war with death / life or death sometimes lies in individual differences / life should not be cut off. Grab a life from the hands of death. Alternative medicine. An alternative to Western medicine. Limitations of modern medicine / my first experience with Qigong. Chapter 2: Does God really exist? The modern world where technology is omnipotent is actually just a facade. Natural science has replaced religion and become a new faith / science and religion. Which side are you on? Religion has always been the spiritual pillar of mankind. The great wisdom beyond human beings, the existence we call God / the development and evolution of religion / Shintoism, Japan's traditional religion / life and death, the Japanese view of life and death. Everything makes sense, and every existence is both conflicting and harmonious. The mystery of the universe / the existence of absolute consciousness in the universe. Chapter 3: Supernatural Files of Incredible Experiences. The incident of falling from a building possessed by a god. The process of falling to the hospital and being hospitalized/sensitive constitution penetrates the realm of yin and yang. Out-of-body phenomenon at the accident scene. The out-of-body soul looked down at the scene of the car accident/in the silent scene. I saw myself with blood on my head. A mountaineer's amazing adventure trip. Mountain King Messner's feat of challenging the limit/Messner's incredible mysterious experience/walking through the light and talking about near-death experiences mysterious echo in the empty valley. The first cliff fall accident that narrowly escaped death/learning after the second fall from the cliff. Psychic, my conversation with my mother. The old father who failed to receive first aid/mother living alone in her old age/the mother's way of welcoming death/farewell to the dead mother. Chapter 4, Pioneers in the Study of Soul. What is psychology? Psychology, the way of human self-salvation/the soul sealed in the body, waiting to awaken. The development of modern psychology. The first master of spiritual world knowledge, Immanuel Swedenborg/channeling and scheming, several famous supernatural events in modern Europe and America/a voice from afar, a spiritual being from more than 3,000 years ago. Chapter 5 There is no real death. Seeking the truth can exist forever. Medicine is not omnipotent, and what we know and learn is indeed limited/God is the truth. God is the reality/don't let science blind the eyes of your soul. The wisdom of human survival. Doing good deeds is not for the purpose of accumulating virtue, but for instinct/farewell is just a temporary separation/life is a treasure hunt/being strong without desires. Only by reducing desires can you stay healthy/take care of your body as well as your soul. Doctors have a parent-like heart and behave in a charitable and altruistic manner in medical treatment. The meaning of emergency first aid/live well till you are old, this is the meaning of medical treatment. Postscript. Live well until you are old. This is the meaning of medical treatment. Some people may ask, since the soul is immortal and people will not die, is it necessary for medical treatment to exist? If human life is limited to this life, then it should not matter at all when to die. Or, if a person's life will continue to the other side after death, then he has to go sooner or later anyway, doesn't it matter when he goes? Why do we need to use medical technology to survive? In my personal opinion, we have one purpose in living in this world, which is to learn to do good deeds and benefit others regardless of form or occasion. Whether it's through work, volunteering, or interactions with neighbors and family. For people like me who work in the medical field, our purpose is to help patients achieve their purpose in life by providing the best medical technology we know. There is no doubt that the most important mission of doctors is to cure patients' diseases and injuries. Therefore, the development, evaluation and selection of any treatment methods, medical equipment and new drugs that may cure patients are unshirkable responsibilities for doctors. At the same time, we also have another very important responsibility, which is to think about how to help patients who are facing the threat of death to complete the final journey of their lives. In the past, all I could think about was prolonging the lifespan of patients so that they could live one more day. But now I believe that helping patients calmly accept or face the fact that death is inevitable in life is also a very important task for doctors. So later on, I gradually learned, and knew quite confidently, what timing should I use when encountering patients whose medicines have failed to respond, and how should I explain the methods and concepts of hospice care to their families. Life is short and unreal. Perhaps this is why we are so attached to what is before us, grieve for the ones we love, and fear loss and death. But I think that if we can take into account the concept or idea of truth, reality, and the eternity of the soul and life that is vaguely visible in each of us, people may be more courageous to face everything they encounter, and will no longer worry about the flesh. Fear of death. As long as they live for one day, everyone will do their best to survive. The virtue of living well is the instinct of life. Because we are a natural part of the universe created by the truth, our lives all originate from the truth. Therefore, we must rely on our own strength to take good care of our bodies and maintain ourselves in the best condition at all times. Because all our thinking, creation, and understanding are inseparable from the condition of our body. As Ms. B said in Chapter 2, only by accepting your body, listening to its voice, using its strengths as much as possible, and being grateful can you survive. I think this is a wise saying. I hope that all people can strike a balance between reason and intuitive feelings, be humble, listen to the voice of inner conscience, be content with what they have, take care of their body and mind, do good and altruistic things, and focus on every living moment. Only in this way can we calmly face and welcome personal death on the final day, so as to achieve the life of the greater self. At the end of life and at the level of physical decay, people will die. At the level of immortality of the soul and eternal life, people will not die. At least, I think so. Life should not be cut off, grab a life from the hands of death. In the hospital, you will encounter patients whose condition suddenly deteriorates and are declared dead. Of course, you will also encounter some patients who are in the opposite situation, patients who were once critically ill, but unexpectedly saved their lives and recovered and were discharged. In medicine, there are some cases where cardiopulmonary function has stopped and the first aid procedure did not meet the 4 conditions of Utstein style, Utstein style, of clinical medical guidelines. However, they later fully recovered and returned to normal daily life. At present, the medical community generally agrees that any injured patient who meets these 4 conditions, cardiogenic, witnessed, has received cardiopulmonary resuscitation from non-professionals, an early electrocardiogram shows ventricular fibrillation, has a higher probability of recovery, and anyone who does not meet any of these conditions will have a severely worsened prognosis. The following is an example of a person who did not conform to the USTA style but was eventually brought back to life. This is a male patient in his 60s. He suddenly lost consciousness and fell to the ground while talking to a neighbor in his apartment. Because the patient was unconscious, neighbors called emergency services at 9:15 a.m., but cardiopulmonary resuscitation was not performed at that time. The traffic control center received the notification and an ambulance arrived at the scene 3 minutes later. The ambulance personnel confirmed cardiopulmonary arrest and immediately installed an automated external defibrillator, AED. At the same time, they diagnosed ventricular fibrillation and administered an external electric shock, an electric shock to the heart in an effort to restore a normal heartbeat, on the spot. As a result, the heartbeat still did not recover, and the patient fell into a P state, pulseless electrocardiographic activity, that is, it is confirmed through the electrocardiogram monitor that the patient's myocardium still has electrical activity, but the heartbeat or pulse cannot be felt outside the body. He was immediately sent to the hospital, and continued on the way. Perform CPR. Arriving at the emergency room at 9:43, CPR was continued. The ventricular fibrillation did not stop, so he received 9 electric shocks and administered cardiotonic drugs such as epinephrine. At 9:52, the pH value of arterial blood gas is 6.99, normal value is 7.35 to 7.45, blood lactate value is 14.3, the upper limit of normal is 2.0 mol/L. It is confirmed that cardiopulmonary arrest has begun to cause tissue circulation to deteriorate. At 10:15, return of spontaneous circulation, ROSC. Pupils are dilated and unresponsive to light. After ultrasound examination, the heart action was extremely weak. Chest X-rays were also taken to confirm cardiac enlargement and pulmonary edema. He was diagnosed as heart failure complicated by pulmonary edema, and required continuous administration of large amounts of cardiotonic drugs. At 11:46, he was transferred to the intensive care unit because he needed an artificial respirator. At exactly 21 o'clock, there were body movements and breathing resumed, but it was like wheezing. Immediately administer sedatives and analgesics and try to control breathing to reduce the load on the heart. The next day, the second day of hospitalization, the patient's pupils returned to normal size and began to respond to light. Body movements occurred when the sedative was reduced, and the heartbeat and blood pressure were still unstable, so it was decided to increase the sedative dose. From then on, the dose of cardiac medication was gradually reduced. On the 5th day of hospitalization, he developed symptoms of chronic renal failure and stopped urinating, so he was introduced to renal replacement therapy called external limited filtration, ECM. A computed tomography scan of the head showed no brain disorders after waking up. On the 6th day of hospitalization, in order to confirm the patient's consciousness, the sedative was suspended and he would nod slightly when asked. Subsequently, the state of consciousness recovered day by day. On the 9th day of hospitalization, the artificial respirator was removed. The patient gave his name and age. On the 10th day of hospitalization, the external filter was removed and peritoneal dialysis was performed. The patient said his name and spontaneously asked, "Where is this?" On the 18th day of hospitalization, his consciousness has improved significantly and he can carry on normal conversations, but he is obviously forgetful and will forget what he just said. Transferred to general ward. On the 30th day of hospitalization, a cardiac catheterization examination was performed. No coronary artery stenosis was found, and it was confirmed that it was dilated cardiomyopathy, gradual necrosis of the heart muscle, enlargement of the ventricles, and weakening of the contractility of the heart, which was not in the early stage. Treatment for arrhythmia, renal dysfunction, etc. was then continued. On the 53rd day of hospitalization, the patient fully recovered consciousness and was discharged. Regarding this case, we believe that the patient's cardiopulmonary arrest should have been caused by a fatal arrhythmia, possibly due to ventricular fibrillation, when or during the sudden fall to the ground. In addition, there were no non-professionals who performed emergency cardiopulmonary resuscitation at the time, causing cardiopulmonary arrest for at least 4 to 5 minutes. When the ambulance crew arrived, ventricular fibrillation was discovered through an electrocardiogram. Even with repeated electric shocks, the normal heartbeat could not be restored. In addition, the patient was over 60 years old, and the circulatory dynamics became unstable 1 hour after the first aid was started to restore spontaneous circulation. Therefore, based on past clinical experience, I concluded at that time that the patient's prognosis must be poor and there was no possibility of recovery and discharge. The prognosis turned out to be extremely good. The reason is unknown, but I estimate that 80% of it has to do with the ambulance staff's proper first aid measures. In fact, in clinical practice, it is not uncommon for patients who are presumed to be ineffective in first aid, but who actually have successful first aid. I have personally experienced this, and maybe readers have relatives and friends who have had similar experiences. I must admit that in the actual medical scene, there are too many cases and conditions that our medical staff cannot understand and explain. As a current clinician, readers may find it ridiculous or unbelievable that I would say such a thing, but it is indeed my sincere words. Farewell to my dead mother. I have a female friend who runs a company. She is over her 60. I will call her Mizzy here. She and I had talked on the phone several times in the past, but never had the chance to meet in person. It was not until March of 2009 that we met each other for the first time. Mizzy had some strong telepathy, but for many years she never mentioned it to anyone. Later, I talked to her about my plan to write this book, and she revealed her experience and talent in this area. However, because these contents are really diverse, and they are all stories that are difficult to convince without witnessing them with one's own eyes, so please allow me to omit them for now. Not long after we met, one morning, Ms. E suddenly called me. The way she spoke on the phone immediately made me suspicious, because she had always been straightforward in the past, but this day she seemed a little polite. The result was unexpected, but after a while, her words shocked me. Actually, I just want to talk to you about your father-in-law's affairs. Ms. E said. What about my mother? It's like this. Since the last time we met, your mother has repeatedly told me that she is worried about you and wants to have a few words with you. I was shouting in my heart, how is it possible? I couldn't accept that this kind of thing really happened in the world for a while. Cases about channeling often appear in many spiritual research documents. I am not unfamiliar with this at all, but I never expected that once such a thing happened to me and my family, I would still feel a little shocked. Why is my mother worried about me? Do I have anything to worry about for her? After hearing my question, Ms. E said. Because you continue to express a very strong sense of guilt towards your mother-in-law. But how could she receive it from me? Your ma'am said it, and I don't know why. I fell into deep thought for a while. I have always regretted that I failed to fulfill my filial piety when my mother was alive and failed to provide her with the best care in her later years. Therefore, every day before going to bed, I would put my hands together and pray to express my apology to my mother. Ms. E seemed to see through my thoughts, so she interrupted my meditation and asked, what do you think I should do? I didn't know whether talking to a soul was good or bad. Just as I was looking forward to it but afraid of getting hurt, I said to Ms. E, okay, please let me meet my mother. As a result, 2 weeks later, the channeling with my mother was held at the home of Ms. E's friend, Ms. F, the leader of a certain Japanese dance school, at the end of March. They told me to sit down, relax and not think about anything. At this moment, Ms. E suddenly bowed forward, as if in a salute, and then started speaking in an instant, Naoki, I'm sorry. Mom made you worry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And the tone of her words was inappropriate. Then there's Ms. E herself. The situation at that time was a bit like that. As soon as her mother appeared, Ms. E disappeared immediately and disappeared. I sat aside and was very shocked that Ms. E's tone of voice was exactly the same as my mother's emotional tone when she was young. But since I entered junior high school, my mother has never spoken to me with such emotion. Mom, I'm fine now, you don't have to worry. Mom is really sorry for making you worry so much. Don't worry, I'm fine now. There's nothing to worry about at all. Okay, then I'm relieved. My mother, who was a little nervous at first, seemed to relax a lot suddenly, and suddenly regained her emotionless tone. And I didn't ask any questions, she didn't say anything, she just been there quietly. After a while, I took the initiative to speak. Mom, can I ask you a few questions? Mom, who borrowed Ms. E's body, nodded slightly. Ms. F also smiled at me from the other side and made an okay gesture with her right hand. Mom, how did you die? I've always wanted to know this. It seemed like a sudden heart attack. At this moment, I suddenly remembered that after my mother died, a detective from the Metropolitan Police Department once told me, people who suddenly have a heart attack while bathing often lie down on the ground, and we often encounter people lying down on the ground. Bathtub, half submerged in water. Then when did you die? Was it the day Kaoru, my brother, didn't call you? Or was it earlier? The day Kaoru didn't call, I was already here. It was the evening of the day you went back. The 6th day of May, which is the date recorded in the forensic report. My mother is used to taking a bath at around 5 o'clock every evening, and my brother makes phone calls at 6 o'clock every evening. That day, you went to the supermarket with your brother and his wife, right? Mother tilted her head and said nothing. My younger brother said before that when they went to the supermarket together, my mother was not like usual. She looked lethargic and didn't talk much. My sister-in-law also said that she saw her mother seemed a little tired that day. When she was helping her walk, she found that her mother's hands were cold. I think it's probably because my body was very weak before death, so I don't have much memory. Mom, do you think I should force you to live with me before you die? I don't think it's necessary. But, in the end, you had difficulty moving, didn't you? I haven't reached the point where I have difficulty moving. Originally, I had always felt a deep sense of guilt towards my mother, who lived alone with limited mobility and died alone in her later years. At this time, my mother's few gentle words immediately made me feel a little forgiven. Then I asked another question that suddenly occurred to me. You took off your wedding ring before you died. When did you take it off? You didn't realize it yourself. You took it off more than 2 months ago when I came here. After your father's death anniversary, February 15th. After taking it off, you have been putting it with the postcards on the wardrobe. Already. I always thought that my mother put the ring and postcard there because she felt that her end was coming. It turns out that my mother did not predict her own death date. Perhaps it was because on the anniversary of her father's death, she felt that she would not die soon, and she was just making preparations in advance. After the anniversary of my father's death, I went back 5 times in total, but I didn't even notice it. But what surprised me even more was that through the possession of her mother, Ms. E was able to answer so accurately. I have never mentioned these household matters to anyone, let alone Ms. E and Ms. F. Did you see Dad over there? I continued to ask. I won't see your father. When answering, Mother turned her face to the lower right, and it felt like she didn't want me to continue asking this question. I was a little surprised and a little puzzled by this answer. What kind of feud did they have that I don't know about? After the anniversary of his father's death, my mother took off the ring. Could it mean that her mother decided to break off from her father? I always felt that the two of them got along fairly well in their later years, but there were always some untold stories between the couple, so I decided not to pursue further questions. What about Grandpa and Grandma? Scene. Where's Aunt? Scene. Such a bright answer was exactly my mother's habit during her lifetime. Then, how do you know that I have always been guilty of you? As mentioned before, after my mother passed away, I did feel a very deep sense of guilt towards her. Have you been protecting me? After a while, Mother replied with a smile, yes. At that time, Mother's expression was the one she usually showed when she was alive. She hesitated to speak, and slightly moved her eyes downwards. At that moment, I thought that in front of me this is my mother. I pray with my hands together every night, have you seen it? Yes. Mother laughed. How are you over there? Mother nodded happily. Then do you know when I will come to your place? You can't ask this kind of question. Mother looked a little embarrassed when she answered. It seemed that she knew. Anyway, you don't have to worry about things here. Mother warned again. Okay. Then, do I still need to continue to visit your casket pagoda every month? Then I will be very happy. At this time, Ms. F, who was sitting at the other end, suddenly interrupted. Can I not place any sacrifices? Yes, that's not necessary. It sounded like Mother's usual decisive tone again. Mom, based on my understanding of life, people do not necessarily need to believe in religion. Then, can I not hold any religious rituals or worship? Okay. Mother nodded sharply. In fact, my mother didn't care at all about those so-called worship rituals for those who are cautious about death. There were actually many questions in my mind that I wanted to clarify with my mother, but for some reason, I intuitively felt that I should no longer force my mother into this with trivial matters in the world, so I decided to say goodbye to her. Okay, I'll do it. You don't have to worry about anything from now on. Okay. You two brothers can't quarrel. While speaking, Mother nodded in relief. Don't worry, there won't be any quarrel. Good. Then, you won't come back, right? Well, no. Just take care of yourself. When I heard Mother there was no trace of nostalgia in her tone, but she sounded very determined. I instantly felt a sense of freedom, like a young lion being driven out of its den by a female lion. I said with mixed feelings, Mom, please take care of yourself. Goodbye. At this moment, Ms. E suddenly sat up straight, opened her eyes, and resumed her original speaking tone. She said movedly, Congratulations. Your husband is really a straightforward person. Because this sentence was too concise. So fast, I don't even have time to continue to feel the warmth when mother and son met just now. Then Ms. F also praised and said, my father-in-law's personality is really cheerful and quick-talking. The two of them also said that the ending was completely different from what they had imagined. It is also said that souls who come back like this usually have strong attachments to the human world, and the channeling process is often very emotional, or they are constantly complaining. But maybe because I know my mother's character very well, as long as I express my thoughts concisely, there won't be any unmanageable unexpected situations. Sure enough, Mother didn't change at all and walked away bright and clear. 2nd. Yahagan Aoki. Source, Dian Publishing Base. Yahagan Aoki. Professor of Emergency Medicine at the Graduate School of Medicine, the University of Tokyo, and Director of the Emergency Department and Intensive Care Unit of the University of Tokyo School of Medicine Hospital. Born in Kanagawa Prefecture in 1956, he graduated from Kanazawa University School of Medicine in 1981, served as a teaching assistant at Toyama Medical University in 1982, and served as an intern at the National Center for Circulatory Diseases in 1983. Later, he served as an intensive care physician and chief physician in the surgical system at the same center. In 1999, he concurrently served as a professor of environmental sciences and a professor of precision mechanical engineering at the Graduate School of New Field Innovation, University of Tokyo. From 2001 to the present, he has served as a professor of emergency medicine at the Graduate School of Medicine, Graduate School of the University of Tokyo, and as director of the Emergency Department and Intensive Care Unit of the Medical College Hospital. His major works include People Never Die, The Emperor, Fate and Responsibility and other books. 3rd. Intensive Care Unit, ICU. Source, ChatGPT. The full Chinese name of ICU is Intensive Care Unit, which is a special department within a hospital that provides intensive treatment and monitoring for patients in critical condition. These units are staffed by highly trained medical professionals, including doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists and other specialists, who are equipped to handle life-threatening situations and provide round-the-clock care. ICU patients often require advanced medical equipment and constant monitoring of vital signs to stabilize their condition and support their organ function. Source, Wikipedia. Intensive Care Unit, English, Intensive Care Unit, abbreviation, ICU, translated as Intensive Care Unit in mainland China and Intensive Care Unit in Hong Kong, is a specially designed ward in the hospital for seriously ill and injured patients who require highly intensive medical care. In order to avoid interference and infection from the outside world, the Intensive Care Unit adopts a closed design, with strict restrictions on visitor entry and meeting time. The Intensive Care Unit is equipped with many equipment and instruments to monitor the physical changes of patients at any time, and is cared for by medical staff in shifts 24 hours a day. The concept of the Intensive Care Unit was first proposed by William Mosenthal, a surgeon at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center in Hanover, Germany. The first Intensive Care Unit was established in 1953 by Danish medical scientist Bjorn Ibsen. 4th. Tachypsychia phenomenon. Source, ChatGPT. Tachypsychia is a physiological phenomenon that usually occurs during times of extreme stress or extreme circumstances. In this case, people feel as if time slows down and things seem to happen in slow motion. This phenomenon is often associated with the body's stress response, such as strong emotional reactions, extreme sports, or emergencies. Tachypsychia may be due to the effects of chemicals released by the brain during stressful situations, specifically adrenaline and norepinephrine. Physiological effects of tachypsychia may include increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and accelerated breathing. This phenomenon may make a person feel more alert and focused, and may enhance a person's reaction speed. However, tachypsychia is usually short-lived and usually subsides after conditions return to normal or stress decreases. Source, Neuroreality. Nothing captures the brain's attention more than moments of crisis. The well-known journalist and commentator John Hockenberry said he experienced this moment about 40 years ago. Even today, that moment is still vivid in his mind. According to him, it's like playing back in slow motion. At the World Science Festival in New York in early June 2014, Hockenberry initiated a panel discussion on time perception. He recalled from his wheelchair, about 38 years ago, I was riding in a car on a road in Pennsylvania. I was sleeping in the back seat of the car. When I woke up, I found that the driver had also fallen asleep. The car was veering off the road. Sitting in the passenger next to me seemed to slowly pass the driver, grab the steering wheel, and use all his strength to turn back, and then the car began to deviate to the right. After that, we slowly hit the guardrail, the car flipped in the air, and I had a gut feeling that my life was about to change. Retired Fire Chief Richard Gasaway calls this apparent slowing down of time tachypsychia, which roughly translates to rapid consciousness. Gasaway has conducted hundreds of interviews in order to study situational awareness, write blogs, and give speeches. From this, he concluded that this phenomenon afflicts many first responders. Gasaway believes he has personally experienced a neurological time warp. This reinforced his belief that the phenomenon was part of an overall stress response. He said this is a dangerous phenomenon for first responders because it can distort our situational awareness and affect our decision-making process. But is neurological time distortion a fact or an illusion? David Eagleman of Baylor College of Medicine conducted an experiment to answer this question. He and his colleagues invented a sensory code watch that looks like a watch. This stopwatch displays red digits and their negatives, illuminated red background and non-illuminated digits, back and forth star. The speed at which the computer is displayed back and forth exceeds the critical fusion frequency, CFF, of the image, which refers to the threshold at which a unified image can be fused and displayed during switching back and forth. Eagleman hypothesized that if he could get people to be frightened while looking at a stopwatch, their CFF would spike and they would go into slow-motion perception mode. In this way, they can temporarily see the numbers on the stopwatch. To conduct this experiment, Eagleman led 20 people to the zero-gravity playground in Dallas. He took these participants to a 16-story bungee jumping facility called Hollow Slam Dunk and let them freely fall from a height of 31 meters with a stopwatch until they landed on the net. The participants were asked to keep an eye on the stopwatch during their thrilling 2.5-second crash landing. One participant had her eyes closed the entire time, so she did not provide any information. Information from other participants clearly states that no one could see the numbers during the fall. However, when they estimated the time of their fall, recording the time in their hands with a stopwatch while recalling it in their mind, the average time they estimated was more than a third longer than the time estimated by bystanders who watched them free fall. 1. Eagleman concluded that the subjective experience of slowing down time in this torturous situation is an artifact of memory and not a true perception of time. In short, time does not slow down for anyone. Eagleman explained, under normal circumstances, you forget most of the things that pass through the sensorium. But in a life-threatening situation, everything is recorded and stored in the memory. He continued, because the brain is not used to such high information density memories, it understands that everything must have happened slowly. However, what if some experimental objects are not affected by the crisis is coming but have some kind of mental or cognitive defect? Eagleman and colleagues asked subjects with schizophrenia and a control group to recognize stimuli, such as letters, pictures, and faces, from a series of rapidly flashing screens. The results show that a strobe that may be 100 milliseconds long for you may be 120 milliseconds long for someone with schizophrenia, Eagleman said. He speculated that this 20% difference in sensory levels could mask the time turmoil in high cognitive abilities. For example, this would make a person's regular self-talk difficult to describe. In this case, Eagleman says, the voices often heard by schizophrenia patients may be caused by their subjective attempts to make sense of the chaotic experience of time. According to a cross-species analysis published in Animal Behavior, humans' limited critical fusion frequency indicates that humans belong to a larger group that includes many animals in the animal kingdom. The average human CFF is 60 flickers per second, which is why TV flickering speeds are equal to or higher than this frequency. In the animal kingdom, CFF can be as low as 6.7 for the cane toad, Bufo marinus, or as high as 108 for the ground squirrel or 240 for the common blowfly. Generally speaking, animals with higher metabolic rates or smaller sizes have higher CFF. These different CFF values seem to provide some wonderful explanations. No wonder flies escape your grasp so easily. The CFF of up to 240 allows them to clearly see your hand waving towards it as they push forward in the syrup. And what about the aerial stunts birds perform amid intricate vegetation? With a CFF of 100, they are probably visually looking around their surroundings at superhuman speed, so they can make faster adjustments in the air. There is evidence that this aspect of time is critical to ecological competition on Earth. One of the authors of the Animal Behavior article, Andrew Jackson, is also a zoologist at Trinity College Dublin. He said, time perception may be a very important but overlooked indicator in ecological niche differentiation. For example, when catching squid, the cold-blooded swordfish will let warm blood flow into its eyes to increase its CFF value. Jackson said, this ability must have given them a huge advantage when they wanted to catch relatively slow-moving squid in deep, cold waters. In this way, swordfish are like visitors from another time and space. Cuttlefish, the probability of survival is very small. Humans cannot use this method of putting warm blood into the eyes or brain to increase the CFF value. Doing so is like heating human tissues into hyperthermic territory, breaking apart proteins and forcing cells to commit suicide. That said, Jackson believes people may have slightly different CFFs, which could also help us explain differences in personality, talents, choices, and perceptions. He said, if a person's CFF is higher than other team members, then he actually has the potential to be able to react very quickly, which is unbelievable for other team members. I wonder if this explains this. Here's a phenomenon. Sometimes when you are playing football and you are so good at passing people, you feel like the ball is going slow for you. Jackson is looking to study something about how people are naturally different. Critical fusion frequency, and the study of how people's CFF changes under different conditions. The most interesting thing is whether these differences have an impact on our lives, he said. Jackson is applying for funding to study these questions. He said that if money were no object, he would love to recruit fast-action fanatics like Bruce Lee and LeBron James because we could trust their preternatural CFF to play a role in their amazing martial arts skills. As for the possible link between CFF and cognition, Jackson said he's interested in whether people with low CFF can notice subtle cues like facial expressions. Jackson also wanted to explore something else, whether we could train people to increase their CFF, either to improve athletic performance or to help treat timing disorders. The researchers caution that the small amount of data we currently have is not enough to determine the connection between CFF and subjective time perception, let alone draw any conclusions about CFF in humans. However, the differences in CFF between animals, ordinary people, and patients with mental illness, as well as the subjective experience of time, leave us with a question worth thinking about: will there be people living in another time dimension like swordfish? 5th. Memory transfer phenomenon. Source: ChatGPT. Memory transfer phenomenon usually refers to the phenomenon that memories, emotions, or feelings experienced by people in one situation or environment resurface in another situation or environment. This phenomenon may cause an individual to feel emotions and experiences from past events that may not be directly related to the current situation or environment. For example, a person may be at a particular place or hear a particular sound and suddenly feel past memories surface. These memories may be related to the place or sound, although they are not directly related to the current situation. This phenomenon may be due to neural networks in the brain and connections between emotions and memories, which may strengthen to some extent with time and experience. Memory transfer is a relatively common phenomenon that many people may have experienced. It highlights the complexity of the human memory system and the close connection between memory and emotion. Source: Wikipedia. Mind uploading, English: mind uploading, also known as consciousness uploading and whole brain emulation, is a science fiction technology that can transfer everything in the human brain, including consciousness, spirit, thoughts, and memory, upload to computing devices, such as computers, quantum computers, artificial neural networks. The computing device will be able to simulate the workings of a brain that responds to external inputs and possesses a conscious mind. There are two potential ways to achieve mind uploading: copy transfer or stepwise replacement of neurons. The first method is to scan the brain's characteristics and copy or transfer the information stored in it to a computer or other computing device. This simulated mind can be connected to a simulated three-dimensional body and placed in a virtual reality or simulated reality. It can also be placed in a computer connected to a machine body or a biological body. The second method involves cybernetic replacement with progressively more destructive uploads, until the original organic brain no longer exists and the body is controlled by a computer program that simulates the brain. Mind uploading is regarded by some futurists and transhumanists as an important life extension technology. Another goal of mind uploading is to create a permanent backup of the human mind so that we can survive a global catastrophe or interstellar travel. Some futurists consider whole brain simulation to be the logical endpoint of computational neuroscience and neuroinformatics. The field of artificial intelligence research also regards it as a way to achieve strong artificial intelligence. Computer-based intelligence, such as an uploaded mind, may be able to think much faster than a biological human, leading some futurists to believe that a society of uploaded minds will reach a technological singularity, where technological growth suddenly occurs at an ever-increasing rate. Big indices skyrocketed. Mind uploading is a core concept in many science fiction novels and movies. The mainstream scientific community, funders, and scientific journals are currently skeptical about the feasibility of mind uploading. Substantial efforts related to this include mainstream scientific research in animal brain mapping and simulation, faster supercomputers, virtual reality, brain-computer interfaces, connectomics, and information extraction from dynamic brains. Proponents of mind uploading point out that many tools and ideas for achieving mind uploading already exist or are under rapid development. However, they also admit that so far, many ideas are still speculative, but there are also engineering possibilities. Neuroscientist Randall Koene founded a non-profit organization called Carbon Copies to promote research on mind uploading. 6th. Near-death experience. Source: ChatGPT. Near-death experiences are special experiences that some people describe when they are on the verge of death. These experiences often include the sensation of being physically removed from oneself, observing oneself, or the outside world, and may be accompanied by feelings of deep peace, inner light, review of past lives, encounters with divine beings, or feeling the intense presence of love. Some people may also describe out-of-body experiences, feeling like they left the body, time travel experiences, traveling through tunnels or other spaces, encounters with deceased loved ones, etc. These experiences are often described as very real and profound, but they remain controversial in the scientific community and their causes cannot yet be fully explained. These experiences can have profound effects on the individual, affecting views on life, death, and religious beliefs. Source: HeHo. Dr. Redmond Moody, a well-known American psychologist, has studied 150 cases of near-death experiences and compiled the 10 miraculous near-death experiences that most people have experienced. 1. Hearing the news of one's own death. Many people who are dying, especially those in hospital beds, will hear the doctor or other people present clearly announcing their death at that moment, and then they will feel that their physiology has reached the limit, and they will obviously feel all functions of your body stop. 2. Soul out of body. Almost all people who are dying will find themselves floating out of their bodies, floating in midair, looking down at their bodies and the scenery at the scene, and can clearly hear what the people around their bodies are saying. 3. Feeling calm, warm and happy. She was criticized for being too sensitive and suffered from depression for 7 years until she planted a flower. People who have near-death experiences may often feel pain at first, but this pain passes briefly, followed by a feeling of calmness and tranquility, without any pain, and even a sense of peace and joy. A feeling of, for no one heard what I said, and I felt helpless. People who have had near-death experiences have described that when they saw people surrounding their body, they tried to tell them about their situation, but no one could hear what they said, and everyone ignored them. This can lead to a strong sense of loneliness or even helplessness. 5 times stood still, but strange sounds were heard. Since the soul is separated from the body, the perception of time disappears. Many people who have had near-death experiences have unanimously stated that they will enter and leave the body several times, and at the same time hear strange sounds, similar to music, and a beautiful melody. With tunes. 6. Entering a black hole or tunnel. When some people are about to die, they will feel that they are suddenly pulled into a dark space like a black hole or a tunnel, which will make him or her conscious and feel like they are in a cylinder with space. Here, we are in a transitional zone, with the human world on one side and an unknown foreign land on the other. 7. People who appear to accompany and guide. Then, an unknown person will appear next to the dying person, either to help guide him or her through the black hole safely, or to tell him or her that his or her life is not over and must return to the human world. Go to where you were before. 8. See the light of humanity. This is the most commonly narrated near-death scene. While hearing the music, the person involved also saw a bright light at the end of a black hole or tunnel. It was a brilliant light, which made people feel very peaceful and comfortable. Some even described it as, Daoguang has a very clear human nature. 9. Your senses become extremely sensitive and you can see life changing rapidly. At this time, the vision and hearing of the person who died suddenly become very sensitive, and they will make a panoramic review of their life, moving scene after scene in the chronological order of what happened, allowing themselves to follow the pictures and experience it again. Some of the feelings and emotions I had at that time seemed like a fast-forward replay of life. 10. Encountering boundary barriers and returning to the body. At this time, a person who is dying will encounter something that can be called an edge or a boundary that blocks him from moving forward. There are many expressions about its shape, such as a pool of water, a cloud of smoke, a gate, a fence in the wilderness, or a line. Then, in each of the previous processes, people who are near death may be forced to return to their own bodies, but some people will reject it, especially those who have seen the light. This rejection will be stronger, but in the end they have no choice but to do so. Return to his own body, ending this near-death experience. 7th. Out of body. Source, ChatGPT. Astral projection is an experience described as a spirit body or consciousness leaving the body and wandering independently outside the physical world. In this state, the individual feels that their consciousness or soul can leave the physical body and move or explore freely in space. This experience is often considered a supernatural or spiritual experience, associated with religion, mysticism, or supernatural beliefs. Out-of-body experiences may be accompanied by perceiving the environment outside the body, communicating with other spiritual entities, experiencing changes in time or space, etc. While some people contend that they can voluntarily undergo an out-of-body experience, others believe that the experience is unpredictable and can occur during sleep, or during extreme relaxation, meditation, or mind-body practices. The phenomenon of out-of-body experiences has been documented in different cultures and religious traditions, but remains controversial in the scientific community, and there is no empirical evidence to support that such experiences actually occur. Some scientific explanations tend to view out-of-body experiences as a hallucination, fantasy, or the result of a mind-body state rather than an actual spiritual experience. Source, Wikipedia. Out-of-body experience, English, out-of-body experience, referred to as OBE or OOBE, also known as out-of-body experience, is a behavior and experience in mysticism in which the soul leaves the body of a creature and moves outside the body. Many people claim to have out-of-body experiences, and some claim that anyone can acquire out-of-body abilities through training. Another form of out-of-body experience occurs when a person is near death. The phenomenon of near-death experience, NDE, includes physical, psychological, and supernatural factors. For example, subjective impressions of out-of-body experiences, witnessing deceased relatives or religious figures, transcending boundaries of self and time and space, and other transcendent experiences. Lukoff, L.U.N. Turner, 1998, Grayson, 2003. This experience usually follows a specific pattern or process, starting with the feeling of being suspended above one's own body and seeing things around, then the feeling of traveling through a tunnel, meeting deceased relatives, and feeling the light at the end. Morse, Connor and Tyler, 1985. 8th. In the near-death state, time cannot be felt. Source, ChatGPT. While near death, some people report that they cannot feel the passage of time, which is a relatively common phenomenon. In this case, time may feel very slow or not be perceived at all. This feeling may be caused by the brain's neurophysiological response to extreme stress or crisis situations. In this case, the brain may amplify or distort the perception of time, making a period of time appear to extend or disappear. This distortion of time perception can occur with other near-death experiences, such as out-of-body experiences, and can have profound psychological effects in the individual. However, the exact cause of these phenomena remains controversial in the scientific community and has not yet been fully explained. Source: Yahoo News. How do people feel 1 second before death? Hong Kong Talk Home Network reported that according to people who have been on the verge of death, as far as is known, there are about 14 feelings in 1 second before death. 1. Hearing the news of one's own death. They heard a doctor or someone else present clearly declare their death. He will feel his physical exhaustion reaching its limit. 2. Comfort that I have never experienced before. In the early stages of a near-death experience, there is a sense of peace, serenity, and joy. There is pain at first, but this pain passes quickly, and then you find yourself suspended in a dark dimension. The most comfortable feeling he had ever experienced enveloped him. 3. Hear strange sounds. When dying, strange sounds come from the air. A young woman said she heard a musical tune, a beautiful tune. 4. Being pulled into a dark space. Some people report feeling suddenly pulled into a dark space. You will begin to feel something like an airless cylinder. It will feel like a transitional zone between the present world on one side and the alien world on the other. 5. Look at your own body. I found myself standing somewhere outside the body observing my body. A man who fell into the water recalled that he was separated from his body and was alone in a space, as if he were a feather. 6. Others can't hear your words. They try to tell others about their plight, but no one hears them. One woman said, I tried to talk to them, but no one could hear me. 7. Keep going in and out of your own body. In the out-of-body state, the feeling of time disappears. Some people recalled that during that time, he kept going in and out of his own body. Continued on next page. 8. Senses have never been so sensitive. Vision and hearing are more sensitive than before. One man said he had never seen so clearly and his vision levels were incredibly enhanced. 9. Lonely and helpless, unable to communicate. After this, there is a strong sense of isolation and loneliness. One man said he couldn't communicate with others no matter how hard he tried, so I felt very alone. 10. Surrounded by other people. At this time, other people appeared around. This person could either be here to help them make a safe transition to the land of the dead, or be here to tell them that the death knell has not yet sounded and they must go back and stay for a while. 11. Light appears at the last moment. During the final moments of a near-death experience, a bright light appears. This light has a certain human nature, a very clear human nature. 12. Looking back on the whole life journey. At this time, the person concerned will make a panoramic review of his or her life. When those who experienced it used time phrases to describe it, it was scene after scene, moving in the chronological order of what happened, and even with the pictures, some of the feelings and emotions at that time can be re-experienced. 13. Blocked by boundaries. At this time, people will encounter something that can be called an edge or a boundary that blocks you from going somewhere. There are many ways to describe its shape: a pool of water, a cloud of smoke, a door, a fence in the wilderness, or a line. 14. Return of life. If they are lucky enough to be saved, people must come back after the near-death experience reaches a certain level. At the beginning, many people want to return to the body quickly. However, as the near-death experience progresses, they begin to reject returning to the original body. If they encounter the existence of light, this emotion will be even more strong. Then, you really come back. Human beings are very spiritually dependent creatures. When a person is dying, a weak white light can make death less scary. When a person dies, his entire life will be re-evaluated. This evaluation does not depend on whether you are wealthy or prominent, but only depends on how much love and warmth you have shared with others during your life. 9th. Theology. Source: ChatGPT. Theology is the field of study that studies issues such as religious beliefs, the existence of God, religious practices, and religious doctrines. It is a discipline that systematically explores and analyzes theological issues, usually associated with specific religious beliefs or sects, such as Christian theology, Islamic theology, Buddhist theology, etc. The scope of theology involves many aspects, including the nature and existence of God. Theology attempts to explore questions about the nature, attributes, and existence of God, and explore the relationship between God, the universe, and humans. Religious doctrine and beliefs. Theologians study the basic principles and teachings of religious beliefs and how these beliefs influence human life and behavior. Religious practice. Theology also involves the study and interpretation of religious rituals, worship, prayers, rituals, and other practices. Religious texts and traditions. Theologians study religious texts, such as the Bible, Quran, Buddhist scriptures, etc., and religious traditions and explore the impact of these texts and traditions on beliefs and practices. Philosophy of religion and ethics. Theology is also closely related to philosophy of religion and religious ethics, exploring the impact of religious beliefs on ethics and values, and how religion can answer fundamental questions in philosophy. Theology is not only a discipline but also an effort to explore and understand humanity's understanding of the mystical and supernatural beings, the importance of religious practices and beliefs, and the role of religion in individual and social life. Source: Wikipedia. The word theology, Latin, theologia, English, theology, broadly refers to all studies or doctrines on the subject of God. The word theology is a combination of the Greek words, i.e. God, and, i.e. logos/discourse/doctrine. It literally means the doctrine that establishes mankind's correct understanding of God. A field of religious studies. After Constantine and Theodosius in Rome embraced Christianity, theology was mostly used to refer to Christian theology in Europe. However, in addition to Christian theology, there are also theological systems such as Islamic theology and Jewish theology. Some scientific theorists and representatives of humanism reject theology because it is constrained by confessional traditions, and argue that public universities should not have departments of theology. 10th. Science. Source: ChatGPT. Science is a systematic knowledge system and methodology that aims to explore the laws and phenomena of nature in an objective and repeatable way through observation, experiment, theoretical derivation, and verification. It involves the description, explanation, and prediction of natural phenomena, as well as the exploration of the laws and principles behind these phenomena. Science includes many fields, such as physics, chemistry, biology, earth science, astronomy, mathematics, engineering, etc. Each field has its own specific methodology and research objects. The scientific method usually includes the following steps. Observation. The starting point of scientific research is to observe and record natural phenomena and collect relevant data. Formulating hypotheses. Based on observations, scientists formulate hypotheses in an attempt to explain the observed phenomena. Experiments and observations. Scientists conduct experiments or further observations to test or disprove hypotheses and gather more data. Data analysis. Scientists analyze collected data to understand relationships and possible patterns among the data. Drawing conclusions. Based on the results of data analysis, scientists draw conclusions that confirm or revise original hypotheses. Publish results. Scientists publish their findings in scientific journals or other academic outlets for review and discussion by other scientists. The goal of science is to obtain objective and verifiable knowledge to promote human understanding and understanding of the natural world and promote technological development and social progress. It emphasizes empirical verification and continuous revision and improvement of theory, and is an open and dynamic knowledge system. Source: Wikipedia. Science is a systematic knowledge system that accumulates, organizes, and can test explanations and predictions about all things. Science emphasizes the specificity and falsification of predicted results, which is different from empty philosophy. Science is not the same as seeking absolute and infallible truth, but constantly approaching the truth in an exploratory manner based on the existing basis. Therefore, the history of the development of science is a history of correcting the deviations in human understanding of the universe. The origin of science can be traced back to ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia between 3500 and 3000 BC. The achievements of these two civilizations in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine were introduced to and shaped Greek natural philosophy in the classical era. The latter formally attempted to explain events in the material world through natural causes. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, knowledge of the ancient Greeks' worldview was gradually forgotten in Western Europe during the first few centuries of the Middle Ages, 400 to 1000 AD, but survived in the Muslim world during the Islamic Golden Age. From the 10th to the 13th century, Western Europe retrieved the works of ancient Greece and absorbed the research of Islamic scholars. Natural philosophy was resurrected and transformed in the subsequent scientific revolution that began in the 16th century. During this period, new concepts and discoveries were divorced from ancient Greece. Concepts and traditions. Scientific methods quickly played a greater role in acquiring knowledge, but the institutionalization and professionalization of science did not begin to take shape until the 19th century. Science originally only refers to the exploration and summary of the laws of natural phenomena, but the humanities are increasingly being called science. Modern science can generally be divided into three major branches: formal science, such as logic, mathematics, theoretical computer science, which studies abstract concepts, and natural science, such as biology, chemistry, physics, astronomy, in the broadest sense study nature, social sciences, such as economics, psychology, sociology, geography, study individuals and society. However, there is disagreement as to whether formal science is indeed a category of science because it does not rely on empirical evidence. Disciplines that use existing scientific knowledge to achieve practical purposes, such as engineering and medicine, are classified as applied sciences. Science is based on research, and research is usually conducted in academia, research institutions, government agencies, and companies. The practical impact of scientific research has led to the formulation of scientific policies in order to influence the scientific community and promote the priority development of commercial products, weapons, medical and health care, and environmental protection. 11th. Quantum mechanics. Source: ChatGPT. Quantum mechanics is a branch of physics that studies the behavior and properties of microscopic particles, such as atoms, molecules, photons, etc., in the microscopic world. Quantum mechanics was developed by physicists in the early 20th century. It is fundamentally different from classical mechanics in describing physical phenomena in the microscopic world. Here are some key concepts and features of quantum mechanics. Wave-particle duality. According to quantum mechanics, microscopic particles can exhibit both wave properties and particle properties. For example, photons can be viewed as both waves and particles, which is the wave-particle duality of light. Uncertainty principle. Due to wave-particle duality, according to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, we cannot accurately determine the position and momentum, or energy and time, of microscopic particles at the same time. Wave function. One of the basic concepts in quantum mechanics is the wave function, which describes the state of microscopic particles. According to the Schrödinger equation, the evolution of the wave function can predict the behavior of microscopic particles. Discrete energy levels. In quantum mechanics, the energy of a microscopic system is quantized, that is, it can only take on discrete energy level values, which is different from the continuous energy values in classical mechanics. Quantum entanglement. The phenomenon of entanglement in quantum mechanics describes a peculiar interconnection between microscopic particles such that their states are related to each other even if they are far apart in space. Quantum mechanics is not only a theoretical framework, but also a very successful scientific theory that explains many experimental observations and provides insights into the development of modern technologies and application fields, such as quantum computing, quantum communications, quantum sensing, etc. Base. Source: Wikipedia. Quantum mechanics is a branch of physics. It mainly describes microscopic things, and together with the theory of relativity is considered the two basic pillars of modern physics. Many physical theories and sciences, such as atomic physics, solid-state physics, nuclear physics, particle physics, and other related disciplines, are all based on it. At the end of the 19th century, people found that the old classical theory had no way to explain microscopic systems, so through the efforts of physicists, quantum mechanics was created at the beginning of the 20th century to explain these phenomena. Quantum mechanics fundamentally changes human understanding of the structure of matter and its interactions. With the exception of gravity, which is described by general relativity, all fundamental interactions so far can be described within the framework of quantum mechanics, quantum field theory. Important applications of quantum theory include cosmology, quantum chemistry, quantum optics, quantum computing, superconducting magnets, light-emitting diodes, lasers, transistors and semiconductors such as microprocessors. Einstein was probably the first physicist to use the term quantum mechanics in scientific literature. 12th. Akashic records. Source: ChatGPT. Akashic records is a concept derived from occult and spiritual thought, also known as Akashic records, or Akashic records. The Akashic records are said to be a supernatural big idea that contains information about every event, emotion, thought, and action in the universe. It is considered to be some kind of cosmic memory or spiritual database that exists in the universe, containing all information from the past, present, and future. The concept of the Akashic records comes from ancient mysticism and spiritual philosophy, and is considered by some spiritual teachers, spiritual seekers, and occultists to be a supernatural universal. It is said that through special states of mind or technology, one can access or interpret the Akashic records to gain wisdom and knowledge of the universe. Some describe this access as direct access to extrasensory information, while others view it as a manifestation of spiritual heritage or psychic intuition. It should be noted that the Akashic records are not scientifically proven or verified, so it exists primarily in the realms of mysticism, religious philosophy, and spiritual beliefs. While some believe that the Akashic records can be accessed through meditation, spiritual journeys, or other forms of spiritual practice, these claims lack scientific evidence to support them. As a result, the Akashic records are often viewed as a belief or philosophical concept rather than a scientific reality. Source: Wikipedia. Akashic records, English, Akashic records, also translated as Akashic records, Aksha records, or the origin of the universe, where the word Akasha is transliterated from the Sanskrit Akasha, transliteration, K. The free translation is under the cover of the sky, space, or ether. According to its theory, the Akashic records are a collection of unknowable messages that are encoded and stored in the ether. In other words, it is a non-physical existence, meaning it cannot be perceived or experienced. This concept is quite popular in the recent New Age movement in the West. The Akashic records are understood to have existed since the creation of all existence, and even before that. Even though knowledge systems, such as medicine, law, etc., have complicated changes with external changes in time, these messages have long been recorded. In the Akashic records, for example, people, animals, plants, minerals, etc., they are simply encoded into a common language. It can be explained that because all creation or culture is an observation of the existing environment, the environment is the source. There are many related works that point out that the Akashic records are actually within the scope of universal human experience, but they are encoded so that they can only be captured by a few people who enter the transcendental state under certain circumstances. 13th. Inspiration. Source: ChatGPT. Inspiration refers to a sudden and outstanding thought, idea, or insight, which usually occurs in some kind of creative activity, such as artistic creation, scientific research, writing, music creation, etc. It may be a sudden outpouring of thought, feeling, or insight, often giving a profound inspiration or creative impetus. Inspiration may come from many sources, including observing the world around you, reading books, communicating with others, contemplation and meditation, and other ways to stimulate creativity. Sometimes, inspiration can come from unexpected, seemingly unrelated events or thoughts, which create new associations and ideas in people's brains. Many creative people believe that inspiration is a mysterious force that comes from the subconscious or supernatural realm and cannot be fully understood or controlled. As a result, inspiration is often described as an unpredictable, mysterious phenomenon, although it can play a vital role in creative endeavors. Features of inspiration include suddenness. Inspiration usually comes unexpectedly and suddenly. Creativity. Inspiration often stimulates people's creativity and imagination, helping them create new things. Motivational. Inspiration can motivate people to achieve their goals or pursue their dreams. Personality. Inspirations may be unique to each person, as they are often related to an individual's life experiences, values, and ways of thinking. In various creative fields, inspiration is often regarded as a valuable resource, which can push creators to transcend reality and explore new ideas and fields. Source: Wikipedia. Inspiration is a creative thinking activity based on one's own experiences. Inspiration usually only occurs in the mind for a moment. Often there is a special need for inspiration in culture and art. Some professions usually require special inspiration when creating, otherwise they cannot design a new idea, such as cartoonists, writers, lyricists, etc. 14th. Collective subconscious. Source: ChatGPT. The collective unconscious is a concept developed by psychologist Carl Jung to describe an underlying psychological realm that transcends the individual. Jung believed that in addition to the individual subconscious, the unconscious level in the individual psyche, there is also a larger collective subconscious, which contains common symbols, images, and experiences and is the common psychological heritage of all human beings. The collective unconscious contains elements of shared experiences, symbols, myths, legends, and cultures throughout human history. It is formed not by individual experience but by the history, culture, and genetics of the entire human group. In the collective subconscious, there are some universal archetypes, such as motherhood, fatherhood, heroes, dragons, etc., which are innate and universal psychological structures. Jung believed that the collective subconscious is reflected in human culture, religion, art, and dreams. It is one of the sources of creativity, religious belief, mythology, and artistic expression. Through the exploration and understanding of the collective subconscious, people can gain a deeper understanding of the common characteristics and universality of human culture. Although the collective subconscious is a very complex and abstract concept and is not easy to be rigorously verified scientifically, it still has a certain influence in the fields of psychology, cultural studies, and religious studies, providing people with a better understanding of human psychological and cultural phenomena. Provides an important framework for understanding. Source: Body Spirit Questions Collection. The collective subconscious is not personal, but a subconscious shared by the entire human history. It can even be said to be a cosmic feeling. The collective subconscious is the bottom layer of the human mind structure. It is a completely impersonal quality. You can call it divine or demonic. It not only represents one person, but also represents the entire history and represents other people. You can also call it superconsciousness. In Buddhist terms, the collective subconscious is alaya consciousness. All causes and conditions in the world come together, and the way people get along with each other is formed by the collective subconscious. It contains archetypes accumulated over generations, which is what Buddhism calls the seeds of karma. Every relationship is deeply influenced by the subconscious mind. I have a subconscious mind for getting along with myself. My family has a common subconscious mind for getting along with each other, and the country has a common subconscious mind for national culture. All these subconscious minds form my personality, my family, and my country. Although the main contents of the personal subconscious once appeared at the conscious level, but disappeared from consciousness due to being forgotten or suppressed, the contents of the collective subconscious have never been conscious, and therefore have never been personally learned. Their existence is entirely due to heredity, The main content of the personal unconscious is complex, while the main content of the collective unconscious is archetypes. Jung. Special. Sharing of Naoki Yahaga's works, for us who are alive and for those who have passed away. I have often thought about what will happen after death since I was a child. The reason why I am convinced that there is an invisible world is not because I believe in world-famous documents or read a best-selling book, but because the death of a loved one. I mentioned in my humble book People Will Not Die, published in 2011, that I communicated with my deceased mother through a friend who was a spiritual medium. During this period, I exchanged a lot of information that only our mother and son knew. At the same time, I also know for sure that the world my mother lived in after she passed away is close to the world we live in. The feeling I got from this is that there is no need to worry about death. Physical death cannot be avoided by anyone. The world after death is actually another world right next to us. When we get there, we will definitely meet someone we want to reunite with. But before that, we must do one thing first, that is, live our lives well. What does it mean to live life well? It means knowing your true self. While we are living in this world, we must frequently ask and answer ourselves, what is a way to live worthy of God? After experiencing all kinds of experiences, we will eventually return to that world. I think, this should be the law of how the world works. Understand yourself and you will understand others, and vice versa. You may not be able to grasp the profound meaning of this sentence when you are young, but in the process of accumulating many experiences, you will realize it personally at a certain moment. If you don't understand others, you can't fully understand yourself. This moment may come when good things come, or it may come when bad things come. In this moment, people will learn the words thanks to you. Although invisible to the naked eye, you will find that the power contained in thank you for your blessing is actually all around us. Everyone lives this life to make a contribution to mankind. It is some great existence that allows us to live in this world. Not worrying about death and spending every day happily is the mission we are given in life, and enjoy the moment is the most important keyword. 10 minutes of life and death. I have been a doctor for more than 30 years and have experienced various medical scenes. Starting from the anesthesiology department, and even internal medicine and emergency intensive care, looking back now, I find that every medical scene at that time was full of various inner disputes, and I also gained a lot of learning experience from it. Although my learning experience was diverse and complex, the one that impressed me the most was the sentence, no one knows the boundary between life and death. Patients with serious injuries and illnesses are sent to the emergency ward every day. Leaving aside those who are still conscious and able to talk to others, most of the patients were already unconscious when they were delivered, and some were carried into the ward on stretchers with their cardiopulmonary function stopped. Most of the reasons are traffic accidents, injuries, suicide attempts, strokes, myocardial infarction, etc. Some people are transferred to hospitals due to sudden deterioration of their condition. There are various situations. But in this state, there is really a limit to what medical staff can do at the emergency medical scene. Of course, we will closely monitor the patient's condition and quickly consider what is more appropriate. Unfortunately, there are still many lives that cannot be saved. While the doctors were explaining to the wailing family members, they were secretly confused by the inadequate medical treatment, but they had no time to worry about it. Then they had to immediately get into the work of rescuing the next patient. This is the National Emergency Department. The real scene of the medical scene. If a human being is in a state of cardiorespiratory arrest for 20 minutes at normal temperature, there will be no hope of recovery. In the world of TV dramas and novels, there are sometimes exaggerated stories of people miraculously surviving after cardiorespiratory arrest for more than 20 minutes after first aid, but in the real medical world, the chance of this happening is extremely slim. For ordinary people to be rescued and returned to society without any sequelae, the rescue time is only 10 minutes at most. And these short 10 minutes are the boundary between life and death. However, not everyone can decide whether to live or die in just 10 minutes. Some people died within 8 minutes after their heart and lung function stopped, while others came back to life after more than 12 minutes. This is the incredible thing about life, and it is also the deep meaning of the sentence, no one knows the boundary between life and death. I don't believe in any religion, but as a witness who has witnessed many medical scenes, if you ask me, I feel that the boundary between life and death is a boundary that only God knows. That is a phenomenon that occurs in the realm of the great being that we cannot see with our naked eyes. It proves that we humans survive because of some power beyond human intelligence, and it is also this power that protects us. And the great existence that protects mankind at all times, I call it God, equivalent to God's will. We can also call him by various names such as Creator, Universal Consciousness, Truth, Love, Great One, Nature, and the Universe. Just as everyone has different goals and values, everyone has different strengths in wanting to live. There are 100 people, and there are 100 ways to die. Anyone who has been in a medical setting will understand that this is not unreasonable. Therefore, we should be grateful for being able to live in this world. There are 100 people, and there are 100 ways to die. This is a field known only to the great being. This power keeps us alive in this world, and for that we should be grateful. The sound I heard when I unexpectedly fell into a valley from 1,000 meters high. I mentioned in the preface that I firmly believe that there is another world. However, the reason why I have a deep understanding of the incredibleness of life is that in addition to the many personal experiences on the clinical front line, my own life and death experience also has a huge impact. That happened when I was in the 3rd grade of elementary school. At that time, I followed my father on a bicycle to Enoshima in Kanagawa Prefecture. On the way back, I was hit by a car. Because my head fell off, I lost my subsequent memory. When I was discharged from the hospital, the doctor in charge told my mother, "I'm afraid this child will not survive to graduate from elementary school." It seemed that a few screws in my head were loose. The solemn look on my mother's face at that time is still vivid in my mind. Later, I continued to have symptoms of dizziness and nausea for a while, but until now, when I am nearly 2 years old, I am still living a healthy and safe life. I also had a rather horrifying experience. It happened in 1979, when I was mountaineering and fell into a valley twice, in March and December, from a long distance. The first time the height difference was as high as 1,000 meters, which was higher than the 3 Tokyo towers, but I still managed to save my life. At the time of the incident, I couldn't help but think to myself, if you fall from such a high place, you will definitely die. I have to die this time. But in the end, I survived. By the way, after falling into the valley for the second time, I heard a mysterious echo-like voice saying to me, "Don't come back to the mountains again." Maybe I should have died in a traffic accident when I was a junior. Some people would die even if they accidentally fell while walking on the road, so I really don't understand why I survived after being hit by a car and then hitting the ground hard. Besides, I fell into the valley accidentally twice. If I judged based on common sense, I should have been doomed long ago. Although I am not sure why I survived, if there is a great power behind it that exerts an influence on me, I think it should be the supernatural power represented by the phrase "thank God." We are able to live in this world thanks to that great existence and great consciousness. Thanks to his blessing, today we can bathe in the morning sun, enjoy a good meal, have a home to go to, and talk to others. For this, I am filled with gratitude. I also deeply felt that I was able to reunite with my mother through a séance. Although my friend who was a spiritual medium was indispensable, the real influence was actually the invisible and great blesser who was hidden behind. I believe that in addition to the body, people also have souls. At the level of souls, we are all connected to each other. This is an essential part of being a blesser, and of course the deceased are also involved. The body is the host of the soul, just like the puppet. Do you sometimes feel that your body is too heavy and it is difficult to move, and you have the urge to abandon this body? However, as human beings, we have a mission, which is to transform the various experiences gained in the life process of physical existence into learning. Because the great existence has given us precious life, it is our mission to report to him, "Thanks to you, I enjoy my life. I am very grateful to be able to bathe in the morning sun today. This is all thanks to the great power that protects life." The hospital is not a place where all diseases can be cured. Japanese people like the phrase "thanks to you" or "thank you for your blessing" very much. Because people usually rely on their inner instincts to truly feel that they are always protected by an invisible network. I think that just like the phrase "each other," "thanks to you" can be used to represent the essence of Japanese people. For example, Ise Jingu, the most holy place in Japan, has the so-called tofu worship. Occurred in the Edo period, an event where people collectively went to Ise shrine to worship, with a scale of millions of people. Its most distinctive feature is that the servants did not inform their masters, and the children went on a pilgrimage without informing their parents. Japan has undergone tremendous changes after the war. The industrial structure has undergone rapid changes. Among them, the biggest change is undoubtedly the human network. In the past, the most important family type in Japan was the extended family, but during the period of high economic growth, the dominant family type became the nuclear family. Under the influence of the nuclear family, local social ties have become increasingly weak. People interact less with their neighbors and the ties between family and place weaken, resulting in the rise in respect of individualistic values. With society changing like this, people's expectations for medical care or hospitals will naturally vary. The role played by the party that provides medical technical services has also changed. In the past era of large families, every household took care of their elderly relatives at home. However, with the rapid development of the economy and the rapid advancement of technology and medical technology, people have been able to slightly extend their lifespan, and at the same time, they will die in the hospital instead of at home. This is taken for granted. The following concepts are widely circulated in society: medical care is about saving people. Hospitals are places where all diseases can be cured. However, both hospitals and medical technology have their own limits, and not all diseases can be cured. When such knowledge began to spread in society, the concept of end-of-life care, terminal care, emerged. The so-called hospice care, also known as end-of-life care, is different from acute care such as emergency care, or chronic disease care such as cancer, heart failure, and respiratory failure. It is a medical method that doctors take before judging the patient's physical death. Time it may last from a few days to several months. Once it is determined that the patient is in the terminal stage, the original treatment methods, such as surgery or medication, will be reduced, or treatment will be stopped completely, and the patient will be dedicated to caring for and escorting the patient through the last stage of life. However, modern people seem to be less able to accept end-of-life care. Even at the end of life, they still hope to receive surgery or drug treatment, hoping that doctors will try to extend their lifespan. For those who believe that everything ends after death, it is best to keep death as far away from yourself as possible. Because these people do not believe in the existence of another world, for them, there is nothing more terrifying than death. Life to them is like a sumo wrestling match, and death to them is as terrifying as being kicked out of the ring by their opponent. Many religions have their own theoretical concepts about the world after death and the kingdom of God. However, observing the lifestyle of modern people, we can clearly see an extremely realistic attitude towards life. Everything ends after death, so pursuing interests in this world is the most important. I deeply regret this. Since ancient times, Japan has regarded life and death as equals. After more than 10,000 years of history, the Japanese have been able to freely connect the world of the sun and the underworld on a spiritual level, and understand that death is just a simple death of the body, and that the soul will exist forever. In the past, people knew that there was a great being who allowed them to live in this world, so they all knew that coexisting and prospering with nature was the most important thing. However, it is precisely because of this that modern people are gradually losing this noble spirituality, which is really worrying. The reason why most people have misunderstandings and fears about death is because it is an unknown thing. At the same time, it's also because I don't know what will happen to me after I die. First of all, please get rid of impossible thoughts from your mind. There are many things in this world that we don't understand. The universe is so vast, and of course there are many areas unknown to humans. Allow yourself to accept all opinions and information from all perspectives with aplomb. Death is not terrible. We are afraid only because we don't understand it. Physical death does not mean the end of everything. Nothing is impossible in this world. First of all, please get rid of the thought this can't happen from your mind. Qi is the source of life. There is a saying from ancient times, all diseases arise from qi. What is anger? For example, imagine a time when you were depressed. When you feel unmotivated, lose the will to live, and have no intention of doing something, qi comes on the scene. The so-called qi is the source of life. Qi, unlike blood, cannot be seen by the naked eye, but it is an energy that travels throughout the body, flowing in and out of our body all the time. Qi is a ubiquitous thing in nature. As the power of absorbing qi increases, people will have the power to devote themselves to various tasks, but once the power of absorbing qi decreases, all kinds of diseases will attack the body. Qi has different names in different situations. Some people call it enthusiasm or vitality. Europeans and Americans call it spirit or prana. Prana means energy or life force in ancient Sanskrit. Europeans and Americans often don't understand the name qi because it has a unique Japanese feel. Perhaps because it is beyond the scope of Western medicine, we often hear that Westerners go to Japan to study Qigong or cooperate with Japanese scholars who study Qigong. In fact, the research on qi in Europe and the United States is more prosperous than in Japan. Perhaps one day, the term qi, will be used as frequently as kui, cute, in countries all over the world. Although qi gives people a relaxed and comfortable impression, we must be able to use it skillfully. Qi, as life energy, can influence people's emotions. Qi will sometimes be positive, yang, and sometimes negative, yin, depending on the situation on site. You won't always stay on one side. The Japanese word for mood is kiffen. Qi can indeed be divided into positive and negative. If there are more positive ones, you will be in a good mood, and if there are more negative ones, you will be in a bad mood. Disease in Japanese is written as illness, which refers to a state of more negative energy. Therefore, it is particularly important to increase the proportion of positive energy and thereby improve immunity. Sickness is an inner dialogue with oneself. As for which side you want to increase your anger during the conversation, it's all up to you. Qi is the source of life. Once the whole body is filled with positive energy, diseases will become less likely to occur. The healing power of hands. Let's next talk about things closely related to qi. As you may know, the commonly used Japanese word hand, treatment, actually contains the deep meaning of expanding energy irradiation with hands. In fact, anyone can use their hands for healing. Regardless of the strength of the ability, this is a power that everyone has, and can use life energy unconsciously. For example, it is amazing to say that if someone who is really worried about you reaches out and touches your painful area when you fall, almost half of the pain will disappear. Many people should have this experience. Real thoughts emerge unconsciously from the heart, and using such energy to heal the other person's pain is an excellent example. In other words, pure motivation is the most important. Speaking of treatment, in Western countries, it is said that kings since the Middle Ages have been able to heal people with just a touch of their hand. This is the famous royal touch. In recent years, Dr. Dolores Krieger, emeritus professor at New York University, who is a nurse, has established a system with the assistance of Dora Kunz, president of the American Theosophical Association. The complete therapeutic touch has attracted much attention. Nowadays, the nursing departments of many universities across the United States have complete and solid related courses. Our hands are incredible and full of mystery. It is precisely because the hands can release powerful power that it is possible to treat others. One of the purposes of washing your hands immediately after returning home is of course to sterilize, but I think there is another purpose, which is to keep clean, because your hands are an important part of the entrance and exit of energy. Besides, don't people always give high fives when they visit a shrine? This may be a behavior that the Japanese have felt the magical power of their hands since ancient times. Things that cannot be expressed in words can sometimes be conveyed with hands. Anyone can help with treatment. By putting our hands on each other's body or clasping each other's hands, we can exchange life force. Death is very common. As a doctor, I want to tell you this. Death is not a regret for anyone. But it is undeniable that many doctors still have a deep-rooted belief that death is a regrettable outcome. How you view death will completely change your life. Because this is a subject closely related to the view of life and death. Do you know the science fiction movie Bicentennial Man, adapted from the original novel of the same name by Isaac Asimov? The protagonist of the story is a robot named Andrew who serves humans full-time. Andrew had served a certain family for 4 generations and then met a woman named Portia. As a human being, Portia inevitably ages gradually. In the blink of an eye, he has reached the age of 75 and is about to reach the end of his life. But Andrew the robot will not die. He believes that the humans who created themselves should also not want to die. As a result, the artificial internal organs developed by Andrew are widely used in various countries and have become an indispensable scientific invention for extending human life. Andrew hopes that Portia can be equipped with artificial internal organs developed by himself and gain immortality. Portia refused. She chose to be an ordinary person, aging and even dying naturally. Death will come sooner or later, and that's not bad. This is the law of nature. Human beings are given life, and when their lives are exhausted, they will leave this world. This is an unchanging law. The elderly Portia showed great righteousness to Andrew. Andrew then realized that soon after human beings are born in this world, they have to welcome the arrival of death. This is a necessary process in a law. For humans, immortality is not the greatest happiness. From the first master to Portia, Andrew went through 4 generations, communicated with many people, and lived as a human being. Later he understood that dying as a human being was the most meaningful. Because he knows that the most precious thing in life is not immortality, but how to spend the limited time well. Parliament originally did not approve Andrew and Portia's marriage application, but later finally approved their marriage. When the Parliament recognized Andrew as a human being, and also the oldest person in history to be 200 years old, Andrew had already passed away peacefully, and his beloved Portia, who was lying next to him, also asked the nurse to turn off her life support system. The scene where the two of them cuddled together to welcome the end of their lives was impressive. The outstanding feature of this film is that it uses an unusual material such as robots to present the theme of life is more beautiful because of its limited lifespan. Living our lives authentically allows us to gain valuable experiences. The dignity we should value most is to truly and honestly identify with others. People who are authentically recognized will understand that their lives are meaningful, gain great satisfaction, and at the same time feel the joy of life. This is the power of the 4 words authentic and unfalsified. People who feel the joy of life will gradually lose their fear of death and understand one thing fundamentally: everyone has the same fate. Everyone has a lifespan. Of course, the length of lifespan varies from person to person, but everyone will eventually face physical death. If we can accept this truth from the bottom of our hearts, we will no longer resist this fact. No doctor or medicine can cure every disease, and there is no eternal life in this world. After understanding the true meaning of this sentence, we have only one thing to do. Live in the moment with all your strength and enjoy the moment with all your strength. Life is so simple. Please give it your all and just go for it. Life is beautiful precisely because of time constraints. How to spend your limited life well. It's the most important thing in life. No one is immortal. So put all your energy into enjoying the present moment and living in the present moment. Thank you for letting me live in the moment. While we are grateful that we can live in the present, we should also be grateful for the power that allows us to live in the present. It is precisely because the great nature allows us to live in this world that we can eat, drink and talk like this every day. Being alive is not a matter of course. The fact that people are alive is the result of a miraculous overlap of various factors. Japan has always attached great importance to terms such as psychological preparation or awareness. Because Japanese people always face everything that happens in life with the attitude of I have to be responsible and I have to accept it all. Whether it is psychological preparation or awareness, it is a kind of inner preparation. However, inner preparation is not just doing nothing and waiting for it to appear one day. This is a preparation that everyone usually makes and should be arranged quietly in the heart. Bushido believes that life is death. Imagining all kinds of situations in advance, that is, taking good care of yourself and being mentally prepared, will make you no longer afraid of death no matter when. In addition, there is a famous saying, a warrior's words are true. It comes from a warrior's words are hard to catch up with. And the meaning of a warrior's words is, guaranteed to be true, without any explanation, so there is no need for two words. We all have to be mentally prepared for illness and death. Compared with acute phase medical treatment, that is, medical treatment after the onset of illness, chronic phase medical patients who require long-term treatment need more detailed communication with medical staff and relatives. Sometimes patients suffer a lot of mental and physical pain and are unable to truthfully express their thoughts. Sometimes, physical discomfort may lead to excessive stress, and the patient may begin to feel repulsed by treatment. Even in this situation, there is one thing that must not be forgotten. That is the saying everything is a kind of learning. In the connected relationship of thanks to you, we will be tested all the time. For example, when we encounter something that doesn't go well, we can't help but think, it's that person's fault that things turned out this way. But is it really so? Even if we firmly believe that we are not wrong at all, if we can re-examine it from an objective perspective, we will find that part of the reason actually comes from ourselves. Therefore, no matter how bumpy your circumstances are, please accept all the realities in front of you. Most importantly, try to face the reasons why this is not working out. Accepting yourself as you are and learning from difficulties can help people learn to give the greatest love to themselves and those around them. Life is death. Accept yourself as you are. Remember, everything is a learning. You are not alone in this world. If you think you are the only one who is wrong, or only if the other party is wrong, the correct way to survive cannot be found. At the emergency scene, unexpected things are commonplace. No matter what happens at the emergency scene, it is no surprise. Anyone who works in first aid understands this truth. No matter how difficult the situation is, it is an absolute imperative to go all out, but even so, there are still many lives that cannot be saved. I believe people should have a considerable understanding of this. However, when faced with the illness of their loved ones and the medical staff are helpless, many people will still yell at the medical staff, "You guys should think of a solution quickly." It's not just about first aid, it's also the same for diseases. The condition that was originally improving suddenly takes a turn for the worse. It is a common thing, but people in the world generally lack this level of awareness. However, no matter how angry you are, the lifespan of the patient will not change. It goes without saying that you should try your best no matter what the situation is. However, if despite all efforts, a critical illness notification still has to be issued, we can only regret to say that some lives cannot be saved after all. Doctors are not omnipotent, and the treatment options available are not exhaustive. In most cases, they can only make the final decision with limited options. In emergency scenes, it is sometimes impossible to perform a reliable hemostasis operation on trauma patients who are brought to the scene. In a situation like this, the next best option is endovascular treatment, but it may not be able to completely stop the bleeding, so if it really comes to this point, we can only resign ourselves to fate and pray to God. Because of this, patients, family members, and medical staff must quickly discuss what treatment method to adopt while there is still time, and how to deal with the most urgent situation in the future. Nowadays, more and more people are preparing a living will. I personally think that this kind of preparation is the best way to deal with it. In order to prevent my will from wavering, I always keep these two sentences in my heart: I will do my best to obey fate and my fate is determined by fate. It is very important to improve your ability to foresee the future. Do your best to obey fate. There are many emergencies and mishaps in the world. That's why preparation is extremely important. Do what you can do well, and let God decide your future destiny. Those who finish life alone are not actually lonely. Wanting to die in your own bed has been a desire of people since ancient times. However, the life background of each family is different. Some people can fulfill their wishes, while others cannot. Those with experience should be able to understand that the issues of home care and care go far deeper than imagined. Although the situation will vary depending on the type of disease and symptoms, if the symptoms are accompanied by pain, the pain for family members to deal with the patient at home must be beyond imagination. 24 hours a day, the whole family has to bear the burden and endure it together. Even people who have been informed by doctors in advance and believe that there will be no problems will definitely accumulate heavy stress and become exhausted once they actually take care of patients at home for days, weeks, or months. So family members must tell the truth to the patient or doctor. It's important to be clear about what you can do and what you can't do beyond that. We don't know where we will die. Some people died at home, some died on the roadside, and many people died at sea, mountains, and rivers, but most people died in hospitals and other related facilities. No matter where we die, we are still human and that doesn't change. No matter where you die, please keep the thought of I am still me anytime and anywhere. The caregiver's perspective and standpoint are also important. Whether it is at home or in the hospital, it would be the best thing if someone can be by your side when you are about to pass away. Relatives who can spend the last stage of life together must also attach great importance to caring for patients. For those patients in the hospital who are alone or whose family members cannot accompany them for some reason, medical staff will also take the initiative to take care of them. For those who live alone like my late mother, or those who die alone due to accidents or disasters, there will be people waiting to greet them in the other world, so we don't have to worry at all. All people in this world look to the blessing of a great being. No matter where you die, it makes no difference to your soul. Death does not differ from place to place. The task of those who remain on earth is to review the stories left by the deceased and recall the time they shared with the deceased. Please use a calm heart to feel the joyful and unconcerned mood of the person who has passed away, as if they were embarking on a journey. No matter where I die, never forget that I am still me. The state in which everyone leaves this world will not be different. The wisdom of not being anxious, not panicking, and waiting quietly. People often think they have to come up with an answer right away. But I feel that the answer will not be proposed by people, but will appear on its own. At the medical scene, there are countless examples of people who have been cured and recovered because of early examination, diagnosis, and treatment, but it is not always possible to overcome each difficulty so smoothly. There will come a time when therapy reaches its limits, and when that time comes, the answers will present themselves. Everyone has had this experience, right? Sometimes no matter how hard you try to find the answer never comes out. However, when the right time comes, the answer appears by itself. Sometimes we look forward and think about it, and we feel that we are right, but the situation is extremely unfavorable to us, so we cannot raise objections to the answers given by others. Frankly, it's a mixed bag of emotions. Because I know very well that even if I don't forcefully hand over an answer at the time, the answer will still appear on its own after a while. Additionally, sometimes we delay drawing conclusions when we don't know how to judge. Perhaps in the eyes of a third party, this person will be seen as indecisive and incompetent, but this is also a choice in life. I feel God's will from the words time will solve everything. Time binds us and is an annoying existence, but on the contrary, it is an important existence used to solve things and eliminate problems. Sometimes because we don't know how to deal with it, we have to put the problem aside first, and the misunderstanding ends up being resolved. Sometimes I have troubles, but I ignore them because I am too busy dealing with other things. Then I suddenly remember that the troubles have long since disappeared. We often forget how important waiting is. When making an appointment with someone, some people will get furious even though the other person is only 1 minute late. However, there are also people who see the other person being late and look apologetic, but still smile and say to the other person, "Long time no see." The difference between the two lies in whether you can discover the joy of waiting. Someone can say from the bottom of his heart, "It is very happy to wait for someone." Being able to do this is really admirable for his optimistic view of life. You might as well think about it. No one can 100% guarantee that you will see each other again next time. No one knows what will happen next in life. It would not be surprising if the family members who personally escorted the patient out of the house in the morning were to encounter an accident a few minutes later and be confirmed dead in the intensive care unit a few hours later. This can happen even to family members who live together, and the possibility of seeing clients or friends again next time is naturally even lower. When you think about this, you will feel that being late is actually a very cute thing. Life is impermanent, and we are destined to meet each other. We should treat every meeting as the last time and cherish it. If we don't miss it, we will have no regrets. Today is an era where everything is about speed. It's not all bad, but it feels like being dominated by an emotion that no one can see, and the answer must come sooner. If we don't come up with the answer early, we will not be able to keep up with the times and will be left far behind. This kind of thinking comes from fear. Having said that, we don't need to have this fear at all. The sense of speed of the times is something that someone created without authorization for their own benefit. So we need to re-understand the meaning of the saying haste makes waste. Waiting also means leave it to you to decide. Leaving your destiny to be decided by God, your opponents, and beings beyond human intelligence. This attitude of leaving it to others to decide means I trust you and has a very straightforward feeling. In the face of this sincere attitude, any evil thoughts and fears will disappear. Don't panic, don't be anxious, just wait patiently. The answer, instead of being suggested by people, will emerge on its own. Haste makes waste. Try to wait. Try to let the other person decide. The sense of speed of the times was created by someone without permission for their own benefit. Don't get caught up in it and become restless, Just cherish the feeling of waiting. Things that are helpless are also helpless. People often show their unexpected side because of unexpected things. I think many people have had this experience. Please try to think back to the time when the flight was delayed or the tram was suspended. It would be okay if it was due to weather factors, but if there is a problem with the engine system or an accident involving casualties, and it is difficult to assess how long it will take to solve the problem, the airport counter or the ticket gate at the station will always be crowded with people. The staff kept asking questions. Business people and sensible middle-aged and elderly women who usually seemed calm and self-possessed were now shouting at the top of their lungs, "Why is the train not moving? How long do you want me to wait? Hurry up and get off the train." Encountered this scene. Although I can understand the anxious mood of the other party, I can't help but feel regretful. I don't understand why they have to roar so loudly and hysterically. No matter how much I yelled, the train still couldn't move. Faced with this situation, we can only think to ourselves, there is nothing we can do about it. The so-called helplessness is a mood of calmly accepting unreasonable situations. It should be difficult for Europeans and Americans to understand this feeling. They have always acted rationalistically and cannot understand what the Japanese really mean by enlightenment. The phrase "no choice" is not used when giving up. But when you can't change the situation on your own, you can understand that this is life and learn an important lesson by accepting the situation in front of you. We must do a good job in psychological construction and understand that the helplessness we are facing is the result of existence beyond human intelligence. Human beings like you and me are simply unable to change it. Why me? Why did something go wrong at this time? When we face inexplicable and unreasonable situations, we will inevitably become frustrated and lose motivation, and our mood will hit rock bottom. Still, it's important to be aware. If your flight is delayed, just contact the place you are going to when you arrive at your destination. Since everyone is experiencing the same situation, the matter should be settled. The same goes for your trains. Everyone's anxiety situation is different. If there are other transportation options, that's fine. If you have no choice, you can only calm down and admit that there is nothing you can do. When people encounter difficulties, their true nature will be revealed. At the emergency scene, some family members will ask doctors to give priority to treating their own family members. When facing the death of their loved ones and knowing that first aid is ineffective, they will still blame the doctors. "Why didn't you save my family?" Usually he has a docile personality and does not speak well. The person who said the evil words seems to have become a completely different person at this time. I am used to this kind of medical field experience. Even so, there is nothing that can be done about it. In mid-September 2013, my only brother passed away at the age of 56. In early August, before he passed away, my younger brother, who had been gone for more than a year, suddenly contacted me, "Brother, I seem to have cancer." After careful inquiry, I learned that it seemed to be in the terminal stage, and I quickly called him to Tokyo University, where I work. After a hospital examination, it turned out that there was no way to save her. He can really endure it. The treatment of terminal cancer focuses on alleviating the disease. My brother, who had an enlarged liver and was in severe pain, must have suffered a lot before he passed away. More than a month after he contacted me, he passed away quietly. Not having to be bedridden for a long time may be considered a blessing among misfortunes. My younger brother was a teacher before his death, and he has continued to practice track and field, long-distance running, since he was a teenager. Even on the day of his parents' funeral, he would say, "I'll go for a jog for a while." He was a typical athlete and a model student of health. When I was a kid, I saw a doctor once because of a cold, and I was insulated from the hospital ever since. But even such a younger brother cannot die in peace. My younger brother is very similar to my mother. He is upright, and once he makes a decision, he will stick to it. When he had a gut feeling that his end was approaching, he might have been mentally prepared, knowing that there was nothing he could do about it. The path of life will change due to different choices. If my brother had made other choices, maybe his condition would have improved. But the idea of if maybe doesn't work in the real world. No matter what choice you make, the important thing is not to feel confused about your choice. My brother works hard, loves sports, and has a loving partner. Although this is the final result, there is nothing we can do about it. I think this is the consciousness of us Japanese. It is said that when Oda Nobunaga was at Honji Temple in Kyoto and learned that he was surrounded by an army led by his crony Akaki Mitsuhide, he only said lightly, "It is useless to talk more." The meaning of this sentence is the same as "there is nothing to do." The original text is right and wrong. In modern times, it is often interpreted as "there is no way and the situation has no choice." The extension is, "the matter has come to this, no need to say more, just do what you can do in front of you." When we are forced to stand on a crossroads in life, faced with a situation where it is difficult to decide between right and wrong, and it is useless to talk too much, can we say the words "there is nothing we can do"? That is the moment when we are tested, testing whether we face life with awareness. Don't feel confused about your decision. Even if you are in an unreasonable situation. If you don't have awareness, you won't be able to move forward. The idea of if maybe doesn't work in the real world. Accepting the inevitable is a very important attitude in life. What should be kept in mind is not the lifespan, but the remaining life. Looking around at people of my generation who was born in 1956, some people are thinking about retirement in advance, some are anxious about business failure, and some have children who have grown up and left the society, and the couple is beginning to think about the future. How to live life. In other words, many people have reached a divergence point in life. If these people would listen to me, I would say to them, please don't run away. About to enter the age of hearing, 60 years old, it means that it is time to think about how life will end. At this age, you should no longer worry about everything, but should calm down, look back on the past, and plan the rest of your life. This generation is the one that needs the most time to have inner dialogue, and it has also reached a point when it is time to face many things, and we can no longer escape them. Even if you can successfully escape painful, sad, and disgusting things when you are young, once you reach your age, you cannot avoid them. Because the last question in life, how do you want to die, is about to come. This is the only thing that no one can escape. Of course it is a great idea to want to stay young and healthy forever, but at the same time, you have to think about how you will end up. Since ancient times, people have often said that the way a person dies is derived from the way that person lives. The real question here is not where a person dies, but how far should we pursue medical care? At what point should medical treatment be abandoned? How to deal with the relationship with family members? And other questions like this. In order to meet the best end of life, we need to be mentally prepared first, because all of the above involve death, and it will never be a relaxed and happy topic. But even so, if we make excuses not to face it, we will definitely regret it. I think the real problem is that many people in real life are constrained by average lifespan. Official figures often give people the illusion that everyone can live so long. In particular, the average life expectancy of Japanese people is among the highest in the world. Every year, the news hypes it up, making people think that they should live to that age. If they do not live to the average age, they will feel that they are defective, and this kind of thinking is correct. Is the problem. The quality of life cannot be judged by how many years a person has lived. As the years go by, the main thing is what happened, who I met, and what kind of conversations I had. The beauty of life is not measured by time, but by the quality of learning gained from it. Therefore, low-level things like lifespan should not be discussed. There is no distinction between high and low experience, because learning exists in all kinds of experiences. By the way, lifespan is a term created from the age of 0. I think that when people enter their middle and senior years, it is best to always think about remaining life, the expectation of how many years they can live in the future. No one knows whether tomorrow will come like today. Therefore, we should live every day as if it were the last day and enjoy every day with all our strength. This is the most important issue in life. However, this generation must pay special attention to one thing. That is the war with desire. There are many people who have reached the age when they should put aside their desires, but instead they are obsessed with them. People around my age, because they have some savings on hand, their work gradually becomes easier and they have more and more freedom, but they are more likely to be enslaved by various desires. I understand this feeling, but this desire is really undesirable. I hope everyone can act calmly and don't pay a heavy price due to evil thoughts and desires, which will lead to the end of the festival. The quality of life should not be judged by how many years a person has lived. Don't run from death, don't be afraid to face it. Whether tomorrow will come like today, no one knows. Don't make living as long as the average lifespan your goal. When you are busy, you should look around. Whenever I look at those young adults in their 30s and 40s, and think of the heavy burdens they bear, I always feel that to some extent, they are the hardest working generation. Especially people in their 40s are facing heavy pressure in terms of mortgage payments and children's education expenses. To the people of this generation, we can only say sincerely, thank you for your hard work. Around me, there are many people of this generation. Whether it is work, family, or friendships, they are in an extremely busy period, and being busy will put a burden on the body and mind. Because of this, they are also the generation most susceptible to physical and mental breakdown. Hormonal imbalances such as insulin and melatonin can be said to be the representative diseases of this generation. Obviously this is the generation that needs to care about health the most, but it is chased by time and accumulates stress in the busy life. When you suddenly find out, your body and mind are already in trouble. But because I am still at an age where I can barely hold on physically, I often sacrifice my sleep time and devote myself to work or entertainment. However, the more you do this, the more disordered the body's biological clock will be, and the immunity and cell regeneration functions will also be weakened. In terms of spirituality as well, people in their 30s and 40s are facing completely different situations than when they were young. They have to endure the nagging of the elders of the previous generation and be looked down upon by the younger generation of the next generation. Therefore, the conversations between the same generation are always filled with sighs. People of this generation are indeed facing severe ups and downs, and one can't help but want to bow to them. It is because of their efforts that businesses and economies across the country are able to function. The heroes behind this are not just people from the previous generation. We should be more aware of this indisputable fact. The people who are shouldering the heavy burden of the country today are undoubtedly this generation. Because they carry this heavy burden on their shoulders, of course they will have to worry about work and family life, but I hope they can see more of this society. He is not interested in political topics because he is busy at work, and he is indifferent to economic development because he is busy raising his children. This attitude is regrettable. In fact, whether it is work or raising children, they are closely related to politics and economy, and cannot be separated and viewed independently. Even if so busy has become their mantra, I still hope that they can care about various social systems, world trends, and activities held in the communities where they live, and actively participate in them. As long as you pay attention and care, you will find out how narrow your usual thoughts are. At the same time, when you increase your communication with others, you will be able to find like-minded companions to share common troubles with you. So, at some point in time, you will find a solution to eliminate these worries. No matter how painful it is, everyone's birth in this world has a meaning. To put it grandly, this is a kind of evolutionary learning. Please don't forget that you are the backbone of society with this meaning. It is precisely because we are the busiest generation that we can truly understand the sentiment of the sentence. Although I cannot see it, I am grateful for you and it is your blessing. Perhaps you will still care about what others do better than you, but you still have to stick to your position, live your life well, do your best, and practice the principle of benefiting yourself and others. Just do this and your consciousness will change. Once consciousness changes, work attitudes, methods of dealing with things, and ways of dialogue will also change. Once the consciousness of this generation who serves as the backbone of society changes, the consciousness of the entire country will also change. I have no doubt about this. When you are busy with work or raising children, you should be more concerned about politics or economics. The hard-working hardcore people in their 30s and 40s. It supports the entire country, so we should pay more attention to social trends. Once the consciousness of the core of society changes, the national consciousness will also change. Go outside the 5-meter radius and accumulate communication skills. I would like to say to young people in their 20s, don't worry. No matter what happens, there is no need for them to feel scared or upset. Although the older generations often cannot understand these young people, they are born with high spirituality, so there is no need to worry at all. The media likes to say that people of the 20th generation have no material desires and ridicule them in many ways, but I think this is a matter of course. It is a good thing not to have extra material desires. In this way, there will be no problems in both physical and mental aspects, and you can live a down-to-earth life. Although people often say that young people lack a sense of domineering, they always don't understand what is going on in their heads. However, although we cannot agree with complete individualism, as long as the younger generation can adopt the attitude of wanting to give back to society in the future, they will be great social beings. As for the phrase "I don't know what they are thinking," even the older generation today must have often heard their elders say this to them when they were young, so you don't need to take it to heart. However, the excessively introverted thoughts and actions of modern young people are a bit worrying. If you continue to only interact with people you know within a radius of 5 meters, your thinking will become narrow. We must continue to communicate with people who have different ideas, lifestyles, and values in order to grow. Sometimes you may encounter annoying things, but it is also a kind of learning. To put it more broadly, there are many people abroad who have different sensibilities from us Japanese, and you can learn a lot from competing with them. If young people continue to be introverted, they will not feel the meaning of blessing from God. Due to the lack of interaction with the world, we cannot look at ourselves objectively, so we cannot talk to our own souls, and we cannot realize God's care for us. It is a pity that the original spirituality will gradually decline. Don't passively indulge in your own world. Please take the initiative and take action. The space created by positive actions is a new world for the person involved, and the choices in life will be greatly increased. It is a good thing not to have superfluous material desires. Many problems can be avoided. However, being too introverted can cause problems. People must grow through constant communication. The life in front of you is only once, just this time. Perhaps due to my low moral sense, I heard that bullying on campus and in the workplace has become more serious. This may also be related to the popularity of the internet. The structure of bullying, simply put, is targeting someone, instigating someone, and others around them echoing it. There are many reasons behind it, but most bullies do not have the tolerance to tolerate everyone's differences, which leads to many problems. Having said that, if you are not interested in someone, you will not find that the other person is different from yourself, and you will not have the idea of bullying. In other words, although the bully is interested in someone, he will not be nice to me because the other person does not notice me, talks to people I hate, and attracts the attention of the person I admire. All kinds of childish negative emotions, and become intolerant. Bullying occurs all over the world. Wherever there are people, there will be people who do not recognize others and do not understand tolerance. If it is a one-on-one confrontation, at least it is fair and open. However, the reason why bullying has become synonymous with malice is because the core person who chooses the target of bullying will cleverly win over the people around him to stand on his side. Attack a single target. There has been a saying in Japan since ancient times that two people challenge each other. Everyone will try their best to avoid confrontation with others, but when there is really no other way, they will directly engage in one-on-one duel with the opponent. Once the bullying becomes more intense and vicious, the victim is likely to be driven to a dead end. It goes without saying that once someone is driven to death, it is too late. In the game world, you can do it again and again, but you can't do that in the real world. There is only one life in front of you, just this one time. I didn't mean that. The perpetrators often say this, but it inevitably makes people question, otherwise, what do you mean? Since the Japanese education scene cannot teach students correct moral values, they do not know how to understand the despicable behavior of others. Happens all the time. The bully's human sensibility has been dusted, and instead of going the way he was supposed to go, he rushes all the way to the point of no return. Bullies have complex emotional entanglements and their own environmental factors that lead them to take negative actions. However, the biggest shadow in the bully's heart may be the feeling that no one loves me. No one loves me, I'm afraid of living, afraid of acting alone. Because you want to get rid of these fears, you find someone to be the victim, forming a vicious cycle. A person who feels that no one loves him will not feel the love of others. As a result, you will impose a way of treating others that you are not willing to accept, and you will not be able to imagine the pain the other person feels. Even if the target of his bullying finally goes to a dead end, he is still indifferent to the pain of the deceased, and he is not even aware of the grief of the deceased's parents. No one needs to bully others. Even if you are not bullying others, you are always loved and cared for. The blesser is always watching your every move. The sadder the person you bully is, the more painful the rest of your life will be. Even if things are going well for you now, pain will eventually strike you, often when you are unprepared. Therefore, please be sure to realize it as soon as possible. On the contrary, if you treat others gently, the love in your heart will become stronger. Please cherish yourself more and love yourself more. Only when you know how to love yourself can you love others and get the love of others. Please understand this cause and effect relationship. Get rid of the willful thought of no one loves me as soon as possible. A completely unloved person does not exist in this world. The pain suffered by the target of bullying will definitely be reflected back on the bully. Reluctance tortures us. Everyone has a conscience. Everyone has a conscience when they are born. Originally, as long as we live according to our conscience, we can have a fulfilling life, but sometimes our conscience will be shaken, and we will engage in cunning, dishonest, immoral, dereliction of duty, aiding others, and fraud. Even if you think that the bad things others do have nothing to do with you, so you feel reassured and think it's nothing, the seeds will be planted around you unknowingly. Because the world is closely connected. What blocks the voice of conscience from the heart is selfish desire. Desire whispers to us. Wanting more money, wanting people to think poorly of me, wanting people to say I'm cool, saying they envy me, wanting to be more popular, selfish desires will be like this in countless situations we encounter in life. Whisper softly in our ears. Originally, we experience learning in life by controlling our selfish desires, but if our selfish desires get out of control, our daily lives will change. Although you hide your dishonesty, you are always worried, although you have money, your home has become a mess, people around you have improved your evaluation, but more and more people are saying bad things about you. The harder you force yourself to get something, and the bigger the thing you get, the less things you want will follow. In fact, this kind of reluctance is the main reason that tortures us. The Japanese word for reluctance is reason, which means against reason. As long as it is unreasonable, it will be considered. In fact, as long as we live as we are and don't force ourselves, we can live a good life. However, because we care too much about the evaluation of ourselves by the people around us, we are unable to do what we should do well, and end up accumulating too much stress, suffer for it. In fact, people around you don't care as much about you as you think. People's thoughts change all the time, especially when it comes to other people's affairs. Others have their own lives to live and have no time to care about everything about you. So when selfish desires whisper to you, listen to the voice of conscience. Please obey straightforwardly and sincerely to take appropriate actions. Everyone has a conscience. Conscience is covered when we are blinded by selfish desires, but conscience, like pride, never disappears from our hearts. People around you don't care about you as much as you think. People's minds change every day, When we are blinded by selfish desires, stress only accumulates. No matter good or bad, once you hold it in your hand, you have to let it go. People in the world always like to talk about that success and this failure to position everything and draw a clear dividing line. Everything from exams, shopping, personnel affairs, love, marriage. I want to classify everything regardless of people or things. On the boundary between success and failure, there is a value called interest. For oneself, how much benefit can it bring, whether the benefit is more or less, such judgment is a kind of awareness of caring about one's own success index. This is the transaction result corresponding to your prior expectations. The content of each transaction is either success or failure. Everyone's life is busy, so it may be natural to draw boundaries like this, but I just don't like it. Because everything that actually happened has its own meaning. At first glance, it may seem like a waste of effort or a waste of time. Regardless of whether it is for myself at the time or for myself in the future, I will definitely learn something in the process. People often say, divorce is a failure. Compared with the marriage system, divorced men and women often feel like downtrodden people in life. However, divorce can make people learn important lessons and understand that there are always people in the world who cannot get along with themselves. Then again, if you haven't been married, you can't understand this kind of feeling. Compared with people who clearly want a divorce but are still holding on to their spouse, deciding to be single again is both an experience and a very important decision. Once you decide to divorce, all of your bad points and shortcomings will clearly emerge. It is difficult for us to create an opportunity to objectively examine ourselves, and divorce is the perfect opportunity. Having said that, I am not suggesting that everyone get divorced, but as long as you consider the fact that you only live once, you can understand that it is indeed a very valuable experience. It may be annoying to care about the eyes of people around you and being criticized, but this is also a valuable lesson that others cannot experience. The same goes for failure at work. If divorce is the result of not being in your own interests, then failure at work is because it is not in the interests of the company. The employees under the operator work hard to create numbers, which creates the company's interests, but the company's greatest interest is actually the growth of its employees. Failure is the mother of success, as the old saying goes. Employees can learn to reevaluate their work content and their suitability through experience, and they can also learn communication methods inside and outside the company. Therefore, management should not unilaterally conclude that employees have screwed up or are really useless. Having said that, after living for so many years, even if someone suddenly says to you, there is no success or failure at all, from tomorrow on, just live with these values. It should be difficult to follow it. So here I would like to suggest that you develop the habit of once you hold it in your hand, let it go. I feel good, that is, I feel that success is indeed something worth being happy about, and I want to be immersed in that world all the time. I can understand this feeling, but I suggest not to embrace that emotion all the time. If possible, it is best to let it go as soon as possible. Similarly, if you feel bad, that is, you feel like a failure. After a general reflection, let go of the unwillingness or sadness as soon as possible. Reflect, but not regret. This mentality is important. Regardless of whether it is good or bad, if you let go immediately, you will be able to purify yourself, and at the same time, you will not develop the bad habit of being immersed in biased emotions. If you can do this, you can be in a neutral state at all times, and you can deal with it calmly no matter when, where, or what happens. In this way, the emotion of dividing the things that happen around you by this is success and that is failure will gradually disappear. If people feel happy or sad because they are praised or disliked by others, they are too concerned about other people's external evaluation of themselves. People's hearts can change at any time, please keep this in mind. In the past, I have always held on to the obsession of I hope people around me think that I am good. As long as I can give up this attachment, I can live a happy and comfortable life. Because the final evaluation of things is determined by yourself. Don't be fooled by the voices around you or be manipulated by others, but accept everything that happens to you truthfully. Please feel free to feel the meaning. Reflect, but not regret. Be in a neutral state at all times and be able to respond calmly no matter what happens. If the problem is not solved, it will chase you. As long as I'm fine. Just reading the literal meaning of this sentence makes people feel uncomfortable. But in our lives, this sentence actually passes through our minds many times. As long as I keep silent now, I will be fine. Only I earned it. Although they were miserable, I escaped. Everyone has had this kind of situation at one time or another in their life. In an instant, a similar thought occurred to me. At the first aid scene, small conflicts sometimes occur over the order of first aid. Doctor, we were here first. Such words are often heard. The medical side will judge the order of diagnosis and treatment based on the urgency or severity of the injury or disease. However, some people still argue that the order should be followed. I can understand this feeling, but the people who are sent to the hospital and the family members of the people who advocate this are all patients. There is a saying that no distinction is made between closeness and distance. If we can look at this matter from this perspective, no one in this world should be able to claim that he should be the first priority. This is not limited to first aid scenes. Whether it is in the workplace, at home, or in communication with friends, similar situations often occur. If everyone only thinks about their own good and acts accordingly, they may be able to avoid problems temporarily, but if all they think about is escape, they will soon be seen through by those around them. Life's problems, if not solved when they should be faced, will keep chasing you. Even if you can cleverly avoid it for a while, it will change into another form and throw the same issue at you on other occasions. Incredible as it is, this happens to everyone. Self-interest and benefit to others always go hand in hand. Even if you hope that only you will take advantage of it, after going full circle, the time to pay the price will eventually come. If it is not solved properly, life's issues will always chase you. As long as I'm fine. If you listen to such rhetoric, there will be bitter consequences afterwards, and you will definitely pay the price for it. If you understand your position, you can gain trust. Know where you stand. This represents how you view yourself objectively. This is looking down at where you are standing. When judging things, if you can look down from a high place, you will have the strongest weapon. No matter anything, as long as you cannot see yourself objectively, you will easily become arrogant or excessively humble. The position you stand on refers to your stance. Only by clearly understanding your stance can the relationship between the other party and you be established. Not knowing where you stand means not knowing where you stand. If you do this, you will unknowingly become the laughing stock of those around you. The word know one's position has a similar meaning to know one's duty. If you act without knowing your position, the first thing you will suffer is the loss of trust. Regaining lost trust is the most difficult task in communication. I once thought about making this society a better place. At that time, I also believed that if I wanted to increase substantial benefits and influence, the most effective way was to join politics. But no matter how you look at it, communicating with people has never been my strong point, so I knew very well that I was not a candidate for politics. As soon as my mind changed, I began to express my thoughts through writing articles. Once we reduce our trust in someone, we will automatically locate the other person at the low point after the fall. Once you fall to a lower position, it's not that simple to get back to the original height. In fact, the issue of education is also related to stance. Post-war Japan created many people who don't know how to think because of its cramming education. Those who obediently do what their teachers say are outstanding people. This is a concept that has been instilled in us since childhood. They don't use their own brains to think, they don't doubt, they don't apply, they just wait for instructions, etc. None of the people taught in schools are free of the above traits, so they can't clearly understand where they stand. Because they can't figure it out, they will definitely get into quarrels with others. To avoid such a situation, you should develop the habit of looking down on your surroundings. Looking down means to look down at the whole from a high place. Just imagine climbing a mountain. Looking down from the top of the mountain, we can clearly see the towns where we usually live. Humans are not creatures that soar into the sky, so they are accustomed to only looking at the things in front of them in life. After climbing to the top of the mountain, we can really feel that our field of vision is much wider and clearer in an instant. Understand where you are and take control of your position. People who understand their position, no matter how old they are, can win the trust of those around them. Understand where you stand. When making judgments, objective vision is your strongest weapon. It is very difficult to regain trust once lost. To avoid this happening, the most important thing is to know where you stand. The older you get, the more you should give up your desires. Everyone has material desires. Even if you have almost everything and live a fulfilling life, you will still think about getting something. With such a deep desire, one day you will suddenly have no desire at all. Unless something big happens, it will be difficult to achieve. All matter has two sides. A thing that makes us enjoy ourselves can also torture us. It is good to enjoy material desires when you are young and healthy, but when you are sick or even know that your days are numbered, you have to slowly clean up your material desires. That means cleaning up unnecessary things around you. In the news every day, there are always topics such as people losing their lives driven by desire. The common characteristic among them is that they are obviously older but do not know how to clean up their material desires. Even if you have entered middle age or reached an advanced age, your mind is still full of thoughts of I still want and I want more, showing your desires without reservation. In order to avoid reaching this point, you might as well use something like a death notebook to clear up your desires. There are so many types of notebooks on the market today that it's dizzying. The simplest way is to write down roughly the two categories of things you need and things you don't need, like writing a memo, so that you can clear up your desires. Besides, this is not a notebook for others to read, so you can write whatever you want. As long as you do this, you won't hesitate in important moments, Moreover, if it is regarded as a living will and all details are explained in advance, the family will not be in a dilemma when making judgments about the final treatment policy in the future. The same goes for the rituals to be performed after death, the burial methods, etc. Here, let's take my personal living will as a practical example. Yahagan Aoki's living will confirmation. I have no debts. Regardless of the acute or chronic stage, I do not want to receive aggressive medical treatment in the final stage. When cardiopulmonary resuscitation is required, I do not wish to perform it, that is, I choose DNR and agree not to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation. If it is a normal death, my body will be donated to the anatomy classroom of 00 University, contact information, 00, which has registered for body donation in advance. After the remains are returned, they will be cremated together and placed in the ossuary of the university. Inside the tower, located in Spiritual Garden. If the death is abnormal, please contact the anatomy classroom of the above-mentioned 00 University and inform them of the matter. If possible, ask them to place your remains in the university's ossuary after cremation. If the other party cannot take her in, I have no special hope. Since I have no religious beliefs, there is no need for funerals, burials, religious names, etc. About inheritance, omitted. Naoki Yahagi, autographed. October 0, 2014. When talking about this kind of thing, elderly people may show displeasure. But cleaning up desires is a matter of dealing with things after death. Summarizing and dealing with things is called the aftermath, and cleaning up desires is exactly the aftermath of one's own life. Since we have to deal with the aftermath, there is no question of sooner or later. No matter how much you want something, once you get it, you can't take it to another world. Please understand this. All we can bring to that world are the memories gained through various experiences. Where do you want to give up your material desires? This will clearly show the person's attitude towards life. What we can bring to that world. There are only memories gained from various experiences. Don't be led away by material desires. All kinds of things make us happy. On the contrary, it will also torture us. It is important to understand this truth. Even though you are no longer young, you can still find happiness. Wanting to look younger is not limited to women, men also have this desire. The market for men's cosmetics or health food is getting bigger and bigger now, and this can be clearly understood from this fact. Under the propaganda of returning to youth or getting younger, various products and services are overflowing, making it impossible for people to see their true appearance. People can only see themselves through the mirror. They are always nervous and care about the evaluation of others around them. As a result, it became connected with the action of wanting to return to youth. The word anti-aging is also a combination of words with the meaning of paying attention to health. This is understandable, but having said that, paying attention to health does not actually cost a lot of money. Even if you live a frugal life, as long as you have a balanced diet, moderate exercise, and a calm mood, and maintain these few elements, that is, maintain the quality of every life scene, no one will lose their original glory. And the real ultimate thing is to not take it all to heart. The so-called immortality is a word derived from people's desires to become younger, to be more beautiful than others, not to want to grow old, not to want to die. Everyone's obsession with youth has no limit. But everyone grows old and passes away. It is difficult to suddenly give up all attachments, but as we age, it should not be difficult if we can enjoy the fun of growing older with a calm mind. By the way, my original sleep time was no different from that of ordinary people. However, in the first 2 years as a doctor, including staying up all night 200 times, my average sleep time was only more than 2 hours, and I lived a life that was very hard on my body. As a result, his physical strength declined significantly, his maximum muscle strength was reduced to half, and the time he could maintain his fastest speed was only 1/20th of the original time. Nonetheless, even though my physical fitness is not as good as before, I still enjoy riding a bicycle. In April 2008, I rode a bicycle from Tokyo University Hospital to JR Nagoya Station. The total length was 392 kilometers and took 17 hours to complete. In May of the same year, I cycled from Tokyo University Hospital to JR Osaka Station, with a total length of 577 kilometers and a record of more than 28 hours. Don't care about the opinions of those around you and enjoy life in your own style. Such people always look in high spirits. Wouldn't life become much lighter if you let go of the heavy burden on your shoulders? Enjoy growing older with a calm mind. It is a given that people age as time goes by. Don't make a fool of yourself and don't take the comments of those around you to heart. People who know how to live like this always seem to be in high spirits. Don't cut off the connection, but cut off the ties. There are two emotions inside us, loneliness and alienation. I am always alone, no one understands me, and I always have trouble getting along with the people around me. The final refuge of this emotion is a negative realm where I feel like I should just die. The root of this emotion is a realm of self-binding. Self-restraint means self-restraint. Most people often mistakenly believe that it is external factors that restrict themselves, but this is not the case. It is you who will constrain yourself. Other than that, there are no other factors. The feeling of loneliness or alienation is not derived from being alone. When someone cannot feel connection with others around him on an emotional level, feelings of loneliness and alienation will arise spontaneously. But then again, even if we try to cut ourselves off from others, we can't. Because each of us has a soul connection with each other from the moment we were born. Being unable to help each other and feeling disconnected from someone is just a dulling of the feeling that should normally be closely connected. I've obviously done so much, I've obviously put so much effort into the company, I've obviously made a lot of contributions to the world. If you have such emotions in your heart, just it means that you cannot see the connection and are in a state of being too arrogant. In the medical field, in the past, we conducted various negotiations to allow the development of emergency medical care, which is the basic function of the hospital. However, at that time, we had the illusion that we had somewhat contributed to the hospital and adopted a tough attitude. As a result, we did feel lonely and alienated when our requests that we thought would be beneficial to the hospital were not approved. All in all, we should consider the other person's mood at the time and be more careful when making proposals that meet actual needs. Later, we negotiated again, and the negotiation went much smoother that time. The solution to this problem is definitely not time. Life is not about giving and taking, but giving without expecting anything in return. Don't expect anything in return and don't hesitate to give. One day, gifts will come to you from other places. This is not giving in anticipation of a gift. Once given, forget it. This cycle is actually closely connected. As long as you put yourself in it, you can get real pleasure. As for emotions like I obviously paid so much, let it go slowly. You might as well think about it from another perspective, I did it because I wanted to. It may be difficult to suddenly let go of all feelings of loneliness and alienation. So I have a suggestion, please try to let go of the tie you currently have, even if it is just one. Breakfast or dinner should be eaten together by the whole family, you should never take time off from school or work, your annual income must reach a certain number, you must buy a house, you must get married, you should have children, housework is a woman's business, and boys should pay for dates. The account is a matter of course. I believe that if we look at each person in the world individually, there should be more than these, but as long as we can let go of one of them first, it will be enough. Please try to let go of the ties you have, the thoughts you insist on not giving in. When you have a strong connection and a sense of connection with the surroundings, it will turn weak without you realizing it. Because you forget a very basic thing, that is, everyone lives under different values. If the bond is too strong, it will cause friction with others, thus constraining oneself, and creating a sense of loneliness or alienation. Therefore, you might as well think in your heart, it doesn't really matter at all and liberate yourself. Please think carefully, most of the things that happen in life are trivial things. Life doesn't have instructions that tell you what you have to do. Why are you so insistent? Please follow your heart and take action. In fact, everyone is a free individual, and there is no need to cling to ideas that come from nowhere and constrain oneself. Life is give and give. As long as you give generously, there will be gifts sent to you from other places. Let go of the fetters and liberate yourself, and the loneliness will fade away. The connections between people become closer and life becomes more fulfilling. Is it considerate to tell a patient you have cancer? The real world we live in is actually surprisingly complex and cannot be easily reduced to one-dimensional and single concepts. For example, do you think it is considerate to tell a patient frankly, you have cancer, or is it considerate to conceal the fact that the patient has cancer and tell a white lie, you are fine, instead? No matter who you are, cancer notification is a complicated exercise. As doctors, we will carefully distinguish between consideration and frankness and make a choice between the two. I personally hope that by telling the truth, the other party can live the rest of his life in a more meaningful way, but at the same time, I have to take into account the panic inside the client and his family members. There should be many people in the world who would rather not know the truth and want to die without knowing. In fact, in medical settings across the country, such gaps in ideas occur almost every day between doctors and patients. How to eliminate such contradictions and how to deepen mutual understanding, medical personnel must think about such issues every day. Patients and their families should also pay more attention to medical-related news and obtain this information, which is very important. Although there are only 2 words for considerate, it is not so easy to describe it in one word, because human feelings are complex and easily shaken. In addition, actions that are considered to be for the good of others, such as helping, giving advice, scolding, praising, letting go, etc., actually sometimes cause trouble to the other person. Not to mention that we may inflict a huge blow on the other party without paying attention or inadvertently. The same thing happens between conversations. In order to communicate with others, we must match the other person's level, perspective, but sometimes we are negligent and only talk from our own point of view. In this way, we cannot successfully convey any ideas. The other party is forced to listen to some incomprehensible words and will only be confused. But if this is the case, some people will feel that their time has been wasted and feel extremely dissatisfied. Everything depends on the case. Only by reaching a state of supply and demand balance with the communication partner can we achieve good results. You should be careful in choosing words and sentences. I often neglect this point. Whether it is for yourself or others, dialogue is a very important learning. We can also learn a lot from the complex problems that occur in our daily lives. You can also learn from conversations. The important thing is to match the other person's point of view. Sometimes when you are not paying attention, you will make the other person feel unhappy. When having a conversation, first think about what the other person is thinking. Whether you can get happiness from this is very important. What you sow must be reaped by yourself. Bad things happen one after another, and anyone will feel depressed and fall into self-pity like, why is it always me? I know this feeling very well. Although I am not yet 60 years old, looking back at the ups and downs of my life, I have also thought, what is life? When something goes wrong, many people will look outside for the reason. However, although there are indeed external factors, the main cause often happens to oneself. Some people are also accustomed to expressing it in terms of cause and effect. Cause and effect is a word used to express the relationship between cause and effect. It means that everything must have its cause, and based on this reason, there will be the desired result. If what happens is a good thing, it's okay. If it's a bad thing, people will feel depressed and lose their fighting spirit. Some people will start blaming themselves constantly and accumulate stress, which can lead to illness. If something bad happens to you, I hope you can take it as an opportunity to learn and don't always regard bad situations as bad things. If you find it difficult to do, forget about it as soon as possible. In everyone's life, things are not always happy, there will always be times when things go unsatisfactory. For example, when you meet someone who is impossible to deal with, there must be some inevitable reason why you met him, so please think of this as a kind of learning. As long as you can think like this, the consciousness of there is nothing you can do against him will disappear. In addition, sometimes we are in very serious situations and cannot accept now. When you encounter this situation, just picture happy things in your mind about the future, and picture a future that is better than the present. Soon, you will be able to see inner peace in the now. However, having said that, I am also very aware that it is easier to know than to do. When I was a junior, I was hit by a car while crossing the road, my head hit the ground hard, and I was hospitalized. When I woke up in the hospital bed, I felt dizzy and uncomfortable for several days. At that time, I closed my eyes and thought, as long as I endure it for a while, when I get better, I can play with my friends in good health. I tried to imagine in my mind a playground with cherry blossoms in full bloom in spring, and the scene of friends having fun together, finally holding back the pain. When I could open my eyes, I passed the time by staring intently at the stains on the ceiling of the ward. What kind of consciousness you want to have is up to you. It doesn't matter what the people around you say, whether your consciousness should be directed towards the good or the bad. Because everything depends on what you think in your heart. In addition, if it is obvious that you are at fault, of course you must apologize to the other party immediately, and you must also apologize to God properly. Because even if the wrong things you have done cannot be written off, God will give everyone the same opportunity to redeem their mistakes. The record of merits and demerits in the hands of God clearly records good and evil, and is not biased. The seeds you sow must be harvested by yourself. Only by harvesting it yourself can you pass the subject. If something bad happens to you, treat it as an opportunity to learn. Stop blaming yourself all the time and look for the brighter side. Calmly acknowledge the consequences of the antecedents. Where you want to place your point is entirely up to you. People are doing it, and God is watching over it. I like the term the way of heaven very much. Because it sounds like a special feeling, giving people a sense of existence that is guarding us all the time. Perhaps many young people today do not know what the way of heaven is, but the word the way of heaven does have a deep meaning. The way of heaven is one of the 6 paths of Buddhism. The 6 paths are the 6 worlds where people experience life and death again and again through reincarnation. They are the hell path, the hungry ghost and animal path, the Shura path, the human path, and the heavenly path. Tiandao means the sun, but also means the God of heaven, the God who controls all things, God. In science, it is explained as the way celestial bodies move. In the past, whenever someone did something bad, they would be scolded, be careful of God and be careful of God's punishment. People who do bad things may have the mentality that no one will find out, but everything we do is in the eyes of God. In fact, you think no one notices, but not only God, but other people are also watching, so bad things will soon be revealed. The phrase do things according to your conscience has a similar meaning. The so-called life attitude with a clear conscience refers to a life attitude with a clear conscience, which means even if no one sees it, don't do evil things, because God is always watching you. Understanding it from the image and perspective of God conscience, we can understand that God is not far above the sky, but exists around us, that is, in our hearts. God exists in your heart too. Even though no one saw it. We must also demonstrate a life attitude that is worthy of our conscience. God sees everything in the world, so even if there is no one around, nor can he do evil things. God is with us. People are born with pride. Many people have nothing to be proud of. Every time I hear such words, I can't help but feel regretful. Because when it comes to pride, the question is not whether you have it or not. Pride has the connotation of self-respect. Self-esteem can be said to be intertwined with the gratitude we are born in this world. Everyone is born with it. We can exist in this world thanks to our parents, our surroundings, and God. The opposite of this feeling is self-esteem, which is pride. Pride is not the result of relative evaluation. Pride can sometimes be replaced by the word pride. Of course, there is a difference between pride and pride, but in the medical community where I belong, whenever there is a person who behaves outrageously, has an arrogant attitude, and makes people frown on the stage, the pride and pride of doctors will also be magnified and examined at the same time. At first glance, the two seem completely different, but they have similar tendencies. Once the gratitude for being able to live in this world becomes weak, a person's pride will turn into pride, and eventually he will lose the trust of those around him. The place where everyone is standing now is the place of their choice. Even if you insist that someone forced you to stand in that position, remember that you have the right to say no, so it is still you who ultimately chooses to stand in a certain position. What arises from this is pride called self-respect. I am proud to be a doctor. Just as nurses have the pride of being a nurse and technicians have the pride of technicians, we each have the pride of being professionals at the medical scene. Operators will also contribute to society together with their employees and have this pride. Employees will feel proud that their work is helpful to society. Even if you only work part-time, or hire or dispatch employees, you still want to be a help to your company and have this pride. Pride is not something to compare with others. Although it is invisible to the naked eye, it does exist in our hearts. Whenever something annoying or bad happens, you will feel that you have temporarily lost your pride and become depressed. But pride will not be lost, we just feel it is lost. Everyone is irreplaceable. The reason why everyone is born in this world is the result of countless miracles happening one after another. Please try to think about the context of your birth. If we can think back in time, we can clearly understand this. First of all, please understand this fact. In this way, you will never forget the pride you have. Pride and pride are mutually exclusive. Pride is not something to compare with others. Everyone is irreplaceable. We are born into this world because of a series of miracles. Please understand this fact. Good and bad are often blurred. Good and bad are always relative. The media is a typical representative. The media presents a fact. The standards of good and bad are actually very ambiguous. For example, 10 people have 10 different ways of describing a disease, and there is no so-called standard answer. In terms of communication, for example, there is no universal standard manual for teaching technology. As long as knowledge and experience are accumulated to a certain level, the average level of consciousness of a certain era will be generated, and this level will be used as a measuring stick to distinguish the good and bad of all things. And good and evil will also change with different perspectives. This average level of consciousness is called common sense. The so-called common sense is interpreted as a consensus reached by majority consent within a limited period, time, but there are also a few opponents on the other side of the majority of those in favor. The quantitative balance between the two will change with the times. Every time those in power change, the times are renewed. We call this fact history, and common sense changes along with history. Common sense is not omnipotent. It is actually very vague. Therefore, except for behaviors that others find disgusting, or things that clearly have problems with the basic morals of being a human being, such as harming others, there is no boundary between good and bad. We should not rely on bounded measures, but should pay attention to the more important criterion, which is the feeling called relationship, which is more important. We are all related to each other. If we can trace the traces of our ancestors starting from ourselves, we will find that we were relatives at some time. Most people refer to people with a third-degree relationship as relatives. But in fact, everyone is our relative, and at the same time, everyone is also a mirror that reflects ourselves. Everything in the world has a certain meaning, and there are also many people and things whose meaning we do not yet understand. Common sense is not everything. The indispensable thing in life is connection. It is very important to pay attention to connections in many aspects of life. Man and everything are related. Life is luck, bluntness, endurance, mettle, and health. The duller life is, the happier life is. Because of my slow personality, I have been able to live my life as I please. As mentioned before, good and bad are relative and contain personal emotions and subjectivity, so there is no need to care too much about evaluations from the outside world. I once wrote a book about another invisible world. I don't care about this at all, and I don't regret it at all. No matter what anyone says, I don't care and it doesn't cause stress. I heard that other people's evaluations of me are at the level where most people would get stomachaches after hearing them. But I'm not interested in such evaluations, so even if someone tells me specifically, I won't get stomachaches at all. All evaluations in the world are ultimately just other people's self-righteousness. Evaluation, nothing more than that. Therefore, it would be extremely stupid to be manipulated by rumors or things whose authenticity cannot be confirmed. I once had a saying from my mentor when I was young. Luck, bluntness, endurance, mettle, and health. People who do not want to be led by the external environment and want to realize themselves need to have the 5 elements of luck, slowness, patience, money, and health. It is unwise to want more than you need, but as long as you can learn this truth, you will no longer care about other people's opinions. My mother often said to me before she was alive, "You are who you are, don't care about others." So my dull personality means that I am not easily manipulated by the things around me. Now I feel embarrassed to admit it. In fact, I have never liked being too conspicuous since I was a child. I think it's good to be exactly like everyone else, and it's normal to live inconspicuously. But my mother said to me, as long as it's something you think is good and won't cause trouble to others, just go for it and don't care what people around you say. The reason why I can now say what I want to say and do what I want to do, everything happened, thanks to this sentence. Some people may ask, is it really good to be slow about everything? Of course it's not good. Things like things we usually can't see with the naked eye, our fate with people, spirituality, thanks to you, mutual help, etc. We should be very sensitive to this type of energy. Because we cannot see it with the naked eye, we should be aware that these invisible things do exist around us. You can no longer be dull at this time. Be sensitive to things that are invisible to the naked eye. You should be a little more indifferent to the confusion of right and wrong in the world. If you want to raise your level of consciousness, these 2 attitudes toward life are very important. Be sensitive to things that are invisible to the naked eye. You should be a little more indifferent to the disputes of right and wrong in the world. All evaluations are just someone's self-righteousness. So the more you accumulate stress by caring about these things, the more foolish you are. The relay of life weaves history. While working in the medical field, I never forget to think of my country. Since I was a teenager, I have often thought about this question, why was I born in Japan? But now I am filled with gratitude and think, it's great to be born in Japan, which is full of compassion and harmony. From time to time we are forced to face such topics as what is the country we live in? And what is the nation? Of course, not everyone will be asked this kind of question, but sometimes when watching the news, they suddenly become concerned and discuss it with others, or search for information online. If the largest general term of the earth is removed, the largest unit that unites us human beings in reality is the country. Self, family, friends, regions, and groups, companies and various groups, the natural environment. To put it simply, a country is a collection of various elements. It's totally fine to replace country with country. And what combines all of these are various systems, laws, orders, norms, and morals, culture and traditions, and the collection of them all becomes history. A country is a collective body with a history to bear witness, and we are members who enjoy the history of our country. The reason why I don't use shared is because history, for us, is something we are born with. No matter which country you grow up in, this fact never changes. In Japan, the definition of patriotism has been distorted for many years. Since the Meiji Restoration, Japan, as a belated imperialist country, has tried its best to survive in the big world. In World War II, it fought the Axis powers, using Asia and the Pacific as its battlefields, causing huge casualties. The tragedy was so tragic that many Japanese still vividly remember it. Despite this, whether Japan should give up its patriotism, whether it should completely deny history, and the level of discussing similar masochistic topics are actually completely different. The reason why we have life is the result of the inheritance passed down by countless ancestors. We must understand this fact. The so-called patriotism is a self-interested and altruistic heart towards the land where one lives. Being self-interested and altruistic means giving full play to one's own strengths and allowing others to make use of their strengths. Therefore, a relationship that results in someone's sacrifice doesn't work. Even though we cannot see it with the naked eye, we should still have a heart of gratitude to God and a heart of mutual help to our companions who live together in society. Countryside is equivalent to the country, which is mainly composed of 2 elements, human beings and nature. As long as this simple fact can be understood, the word patriotism can return to its original meaning. Not just loving the country where you were born can be called patriotism. Even if the country where he was born is different from the country where he lives now, if the person concerned can truly love the country where he lives now, it means that he has an out-and-out patriotism. Donald, Professor Emeritus of Columbia University. Take Donald Keene as an example. When he was young, he was deeply moved by the tale of Genji and fell in love with Japan, which is rich in nature and culture, so he became a Japanese citizen. There are many people like him. In the past, places that taught people to love their country did exist. People can learn this naturally within their family or community. In an environment where people of various personalities coexist, a structure is established for people to discuss and confirm with each other. But unfortunately, this structure has long since collapsed and no longer exists. Education, that is, the shared value system of teaching and nurturing, has fallen into a state of dysfunction in the decades since the war. In order to prevent the country from collapsing, we cannot just teach students how to take exams, but we must fully let the trainees understand how to be a human being in educational settings in a set of thanks to you network of people that connects ourselves and others. Road, appreciate the beauty of nature, and implement basic moral education. Patriotism. Born from learning history correctly and understanding each other. Patriotism should not be mistaken for only my own country is correct. Only with a correct understanding of history and values can we develop a love for our own country. Edo people used to say I'm sorry if I die. As the saying goes, when you arrive, do as the Romans do. This is a famous saying that we are all familiar with, and it is because of this lifestyle that a harmonious society is built. During the turbulent period before the war and the chaotic period after the war, the Japanese immigrated to various parts of the world. After many hardships, many of them finally integrated into the local society. Now their descendants are spreading all over the world. Not only overseas, but also in Japan. When many people leave their hometown where they grew up to live in a different place, they strive to learn the local customs and rules and behave in accordance with the standards. This is what the Japanese are like. Since ancient times, Japan has followed the structure of knots in rural areas and knots in towns. Knot refers to a structure that helps each other in farming. Farm life is busy, so farmers work together to help each other. This is not only the provision of labor during busy farming periods, but also a structure for mutual accommodation of materials or funds. Speaking, like knot, is also a mutual aid structure, but speaking originated from seminars or reading groups composed of monks, so sometimes it refers to religious groups with common beliefs, such as Buddhism, ethnic religions wait. Sometimes organizations like town associations are simply called talks. No matter what they are all established in the spirit of mutual help and are also the results of the spirit of thanks to you. The most concrete expression of this mental structure is greeting. At home, around the house, or in the workplace, through basic greetings such as good afternoon, good morning, and good night, we can confirm to each other that we are both alive today or thanks to you, we are alive today. I'm still having a good day today. This is why greetings are important. We are all companions living together under God. Integrating into the local area and greeting each other has always been the most important historical habit in Japan, and it is also a culture. In addition, originating from the rules of Edo common people, the Chinese character writing Edo Shiko * is a representative example of expressing consideration for the other person's feelings through body language. Siko means thinking, and grass means behavior. That is Edo style, which represents the daily etiquette, life attitude, life philosophy, etc. of the Edo period. On rainy days, in order to avoid bumping into or getting others wet, tilt the umbrella to the outside of the road, lean to the side of the road when walking, move over to make room at a crowded banquet, and pass by others nodding and greeting with eyes. The behavioral etiquette in public places is full of the spirit of mutual help. Of course, Edo Siso still continues to this day. For example, when talking on the phone, you feel as if you are face to face with the other party. So when you want to express your gratitude, do you often see someone holding a microphone in their hand and bowing to an invisible person? They believe that their unconscious gratitude will be conveyed to the person on the other end of the phone. Such concerns of the Japanese are also filled in conversations and words. 3 No question teachings, to people you meet for the first time without asking about their age, occupation, or status. Kaisei, to express gratitude for being able to live in this world when you are born into the world, it means I accepted it or I'm going to start it. Thank you derived from the meaning of something hard-earned, literally translated as it's difficult, this is not easy, I'm sorry, literally translated as my heart is not clear. Enough, when you cannot properly respond to the other person's kindness, or hope, and so on. By the way, Edo people attach great importance to promises. Therefore, the phrase I'm sorry if I die is derived, which means that I must keep my promise, but if I die, I will not be able to fulfill my promise, and I am very sorry for this. Sorry is a way to apologize, and it is also a way to ask for forgiveness. Modern people often break their promises simply because they have no evidence or their words are unfounded. However, once you say something, you have to bear great responsibility. Therefore, you should never make casual promises or speak rudely. This is the wisdom of our ancestors who valued the spirit of speech star. The ancient Japanese believed that words have incredible power, so they called them word spirits. The history of a country will be revealed in words and actions. History is not created by the powerful people of the era, but is continuously woven by the people of the country. So understanding history can help us understand how our ancestors lived and what they left behind for future generations. It is important to look abroad, but I deeply feel that everyone should know more about their own country. Greeting is a considerate rule. It is also a confirmation of each other's lives. You have your own responsibility for what you say. There is a spirit in words, so you should not say offensive words. Language is the expression of a country's history. Should we educate the next generation to not lie to others or not to be fooled? The Japanese are a nation with a remarkable spirit. Love, harmony, and tolerance are the three characteristics that fully express the characteristics of the Japanese people. I believe many people feel the same way about this. Perhaps we are not particularly aware of this at ordinary times, but do we feel this strongly during every international sports competition? In addition to the players representing Japan, the Japanese also applauded the good performances of teams from other countries. Even if it is a team that beats Japanese players, as long as they can advance, they will still cheer for them. And no dirty tricks will be used in any project. International people and media are amazed by the Japanese people's spirit of fair play. Anyone who is engaged in sports certainly knows that when Japanese coaches train players, they not only require them to win in competition, but also hope that they will have the pride of being a person, which is the spirit of sportsmanship. Even if they lose the game, as long as it is the result of hard work, Japanese public opinion will not criticize the players harshly and will even applaud them. Because people can understand the players' reluctance and pride. This also contains the spirit of victory is wonderful, but winning or losing is not everything. There is also the aesthetic of losing, and the Japanese understand this truth perhaps better than any other country in the world. For example, in the women's figure skating long program of the 22nd Winter Olympics, Mao Asada's free and unrestrained performance put the outcome at risk with her outstanding performance and made consecutive high-risk moves. Difficult jumps, a total of 8 jumps, the world's first 6 kinds of 3-turn jumps, although she failed to win the gold medal in the end, she and the whole country were deeply moved and satisfied. Only Japanese people can do this. In addition, although the judges gave her 3rd place for her unprecedented performance in the history of women's figure skating, neither she nor the Chinese people complained about this evaluation. In addition, the phrase "the past is wasted" also has a very Japanese flavor. Once a problem or mistake occurs abroad, there is rarely an atmosphere of letting the past go down the drain. Instead, one blames the opponent for their negligence, conceals one's own mistakes, and sometimes even asks the opponent who is not at fault to apologize. As long as no one gives in due to fatigue or boredom, the confrontation will continue, but the Japanese don't like this atmosphere. The saying "both parties in a quarrel are punished" is often said together with the saying that the past is wasted. Because as long as the source of the quarrel or dispute is strictly investigated, both parties are mostly at fault. Japanese people understand this truth almost from birth, and foreigners who can understand the deeper meaning of this sentence also agree that this behavior of the Japanese is an effective solution. This is love, a harmonious heart, and Japanese culture of tolerance. No matter how much we argue, we can't solve anything and we can't move forward. Considering this national character, I feel that the people I have been complaining about recently are not what Japanese people are like at all. This despicable temperament of chasing and beating the opponent fiercely and uttering evil words until the opponent is covered with bruises and bruises is a kind of spirit that arises from misunderstanding rights and obligations. It is incompatible with the thank you that the Japanese have always valued. The idea of helping each other is quite the opposite. In order to change the trend of complainers spreading, basic moral education is particularly important. When the teacher teaches students morals, I think it is enough to adopt the 17-article constitution promulgated by Prince Shotoku in 604 AD as the basic part. Because the things that are necessary and should be observed as a human being are all summarized concisely. Prince Shotoku, 574–622, was deeply influenced by Chinese culture and Confucianism. He was the first to use the title of emperor, carried out political reforms, and formulated the 17-article constitution, which was Japan's earliest written law. Its ideological origins come from Chinese Confucianism, legalism, and Buddhism, and was formulated in response to Japan's national conditions and needs. The content mainly describes the social status, rights, and obligations of different classes, especially nobles and officials, emphasizing that the king is like heaven. The national consciousness centered on the emperor had a great influence on the compilation of legal codes for future generations of Japan. If people can thoroughly understand the contents of the 17-article constitution, people will not do absurd things. Because from it, we can clearly understand the right path to follow as a human being, how the society we live in is structured, and what position we stand in. The 17-article constitution and the ideas that were put to waste in the past are the foundation laid by many peoples from all over the world who came to the Japanese islands in the Far East 10,000 years ago and lived in harmony here. This is why the Japanese way of thinking is different from that of people who grew up in mainland countries. Because of this, despite the inevitable conflicts in every era, Japan was able to maintain the emperor system that is rare in the world. Teaching people not to lie is also a Japanese trait. Some countries or nations will teach people not to be deceived. Further exploring the background of this sentence, we can see that they have the mentality of since they will be cheated, it is better to lie to others and doubt others. Ordinary people tend to think this way. Japanese people are very kind and easy to deceive, and because they are a noble nation, they can easily take advantage of others. Despite this, I still like the Japanese teaching that you must not lie to others. Having this kind of nature is the best way to achieve self-interest and benefit others. You can't move forward by just arguing. Whenever this happens, be sure to throw everything down the drain. Remove the knots in your heart. There is nothing more pointless than arguing until one of the parties falls. Shinto, a power that gives thanks to all things. In the fall of 2013, the simultaneous relocation of Ise Jingu Shrine and Izumo Taisha Shrine became a hot topic, and domestic and foreign attention to shrines and Shinto shrines has been increasing year by year. I think this is a sign that Japanese sensibility is developing in a good direction. Shinto is full of sensibility. It gives people the feeling that no matter where they are, various rituals will be performed respectfully. There is no way to deny this trend, but the most important thing in Shinto is the ability to feel divinity from all things. This is its essence. If we adopt the Western terminology, it is pantheism, the belief that God is everything and everything is God. Western countries with a majority of monotheistic religions may think so, but from the perspective of the Japanese, who revere 8 million gods*, it is only natural for gods to inhabit everything. 8 million describes the countless gods. Since ancient times, the Japanese have believed in the existence of gods and held the idea that everything is inhabited by gods. This has a great influence on the hearts and souls of the Japanese people. Shinto has Japanese characteristics such as love, harmony, and tolerance. Everything is done from the perspective of whether it violates the will of God. This is extremely important. If you only focus on rituals and want to gain peace of mind through forms, you are simply going in the wrong direction. I once met a patient who made a decision to obey the will of God. One day, a man in his 70s who was admitted to a hospital near his home due to pneumonia wanted to be transferred to the intensive care unit of our hospital. He managed to save his life at the critical moment, but in the end he had to undergo a tracheotomy and undergo dialysis, so he was transferred to another hospital. Later, his respiratory function declined and he needed to be controlled with analgesics, so he was sent back to this hospital again. Under this situation, this man decided to receive end-of-life care according to his own will, and his family all respected his wishes and provided palliative care based on the principle of making him feel better. He passed away peacefully not long after. At that time, I deeply admired the freedom of the client and his family. No matter what the condition is, please find a way to keep him alive. Many family members will make such a request to doctors. In terms of normalcy, making such a calm decision like the above example not only requires courage, but also tests the family's communication skills. Just do what you have to do, and don't violate God's will. Such a decisive decision can be seen as a gesture of Bushido. Free and easy is a kind of sensibility, and sensibility is spirituality. In other words, freedom and ease are the main axis of Shinto and our innate feeling. The phrase "the past is wasted" that I mentioned earlier is indeed what Japanese people who believe in Shinto would say. No matter what kind of trouble we encounter, we are all companions who cherish the life given by God, so this sentence contains the profound meaning of thanks to you, we must help each other. By the way, Shinto and the pre-war National Shinto are two completely different things. National Shinto is a Shinto created by the new Meiji government by combining Shrine Shinto and Imperial Shinto, giving citizens the obligation to worship the emperor and shrine beliefs. After World War II, it was disbanded due to the promulgation of the Religious Legal Person Ordinance, Shinto Directive, by the occupying forces. Shinto is originally a tolerant sensibility without written norms. It can be said to be completely different in nature from the National Shinto that was promoted as a national policy before the war. Over the years, the Japanese have missed the opportunity to face Shinto. The biggest culprit causing all this is National Shinto. There is typical evidence that Shinto is not tightly bound by rules and rituals. That is clap. In the 2 bows, 2 claps, and 1 bow in front of the shrine, there are 2 claps. The priests of Izumo Taisha Shrine or USA Shrine, USA Hakamangwa Shrine, clap 4 times, and the priests of Ise Shrine clap 8 times. In addition, at Ise Jingu Shrine, instead of performing 2 rituals, 4 rituals are performed. By the way, clapping less than 3 times is called short clapping. The clapping itself, in addition to the general situation, also includes the which does not make any sound, and the saluting hand that is clapping once when receiving a wine glass at Juhwei, a banquet after the festival, etc., which can be said to be quite profound. Our hands are not only responsible for actions such as picking and grasping, but they are also the gateway for the energy of nature to enter and exit. The word TED, treatment, in Japanese may seem simple, but it actually contains this profound meaning. Clapping is no exception. Putting your hands together can generate the energy of prayer. All things in the world are companions who cherish the life given by God. It is very important to feel the power of divinity in all things. Shinto is the highest state of love, harmony, and tolerance. Facing life with fairness and justice. Shinto has an upright and bright heart. Being upright and upright means to keep your heart holy, to display it with integrity and forthrightness, and to strive to be close to God, taking this as your guideline. The Japanese people have always attached great importance to the divinity and the cycle of nature that cannot be explained by reason and are invisible to the naked eye. Their character is fully reflected in the 4 words honest and bright. Divinity is not far away from us, it exists in our hearts, and there is no need to even rely on words to understand it. Unlike Westerners' monotheistic religions or Buddhism, Shinto focuses on the eternal sensibility between gods and humans. From time immemorial, there is divinity in us. The famous saying of Master Saikyo, although I don't know who is here, my gratitude is overwhelming and my tears are endless is a reference to Ise Jinggu Shrine. The essence of Shinto is expressed between the lines, that is, the unbroken faith of the Japanese people since ancient times. The one who cannot be completely separated from Shinto is His Majesty the Emperor. Although I cannot compare with the Emperor, I am equally grateful that I was born into this world and that the people who live with me in this world were born into this world. I am grateful and pray for this every day. I give thanks in my heart when I wake up in the morning, when I eat, when I start work, and when I go to bed at night. Prayer is a kind of energy that conveys your thoughts to the great existence. Since His Majesty the Emperor is a member of the Japanese people, his original role is that of the highest-ranking prayer man in Japan. He is the center of the country Japan, its spiritual pillar, and an important role connecting the divine world and the human world. In other words, the Emperor shoulders the responsibility of sharing the connection with God with the people and is the most important God who prays for peace and stability. This is the existence of His Majesty the Emperor. Let your soul be holy, upright and straightforward. Pray like this at all times and walk on your own path. His Majesty the Emperor is the highest-ranking man of prayer in Japan. He is responsible for connecting God and people and is an important God who prays for peace. Hold a review meeting in another world. As I stated in my book You Will Not Die, I have always viewed death separately from old values. Death represents the death of the body, that is true, but our souls live on forever. In this sense, I can openly say that our deceased relatives and friends are always there to protect us, and this is indeed true. Frankly speaking, this is one of the sensibilities that humans have had since ancient times. This kind of sensibility is fate. Fate is connected. If you are Japanese, you will naturally have this kind of sensibility. As we all know, fate is the connection between oneself and someone. If you have a fate with the people living in this world, you will naturally have a fate with the people who have passed away. Fate is also the connection between oneself and God. Although we cannot see God, He is not a visible entity, but a sensory entity. Fate is not visible to the naked eye, it has to be felt. Death does not mean the end. Our souls will live on forever. The essence of human beings is not the body, but the soul, so there is no need to be afraid whether you are sick or getting old. The deep sorrow for the deceased can only be understood by those who have truly experienced it. My own parents and brother are in another world. I felt a sense of loss, and I also thought to myself, it would be great if I could talk to them more while they were alive. However, now I have a very strong idea, that is, when I return to another world in the future, I want to hold a review meeting with them. So now, I no longer feel the loneliness that people left in the world feel. There are 2 worlds in the world at the same time, and I think I know this very well. We who remain in this world are like players competing in a stadium, while the deceased are sitting in the audience, watching us and supporting us. There is a one-way mirror, so the auditorium cannot be seen from the stadium, but we can be seen from the auditorium. There are hardships waiting for us in the stadium, but we must overcome them, solve problems, and learn the skills needed in this game called life. There are certainly happy learnings, but there are also many painful learnings. When we are exhausted and distressed, the support of Don't Give In comes from the audience. And when we get through the difficulties safely, our ancestors will applaud and say to us, well done. Although the support and applause will not turn into sounds and reach our ears, we can always be there somewhere. Really feel it in the present moment, in a certain moment. Although the situation varies from person to person, when you feel a certain feeling and can't understand it, maybe it is the person who has always cared about you and protected you, and is sending you a message. Please take this sentiment seriously. Although you cannot see the body, you still have to say to it, thank you for your blessing. And please look forward to the day when you can meet them again in the future. The world is a stadium. We are all contestants who live in the moment. Although invisible to the naked eye, the deceased have been supporting us in the audience. We must live in the present and look forward to seeing them again in the future. With a different heart. The adults of our generation shoulder the important responsibility of protecting the younger generations. Some people may easily say that young people these days are really creating a gap between generations on their own, but in this case, we fail to fulfill our due responsibilities. Because now is an era that has entered a major turning point, adults should protect the younger generation with a broad vision and effectively convey the correct message to them. Not only the baton of life, but also the baton of tradition and culture will be passed down from generation to generation and must not be cut off in our generation. Among them, things that will not change due to the changes of the times should be passed on with care. Since more than 10,000 years ago, various ethnic groups around the world have begun to live together. Taking Japan as an example, the ancestors of the Japanese quickly settled in the Japanese archipelago. In other words, each of us has genes that have been passed down from the past to the present, and the characteristic of these genes is the ability to feel connected physically and mentally. The physical body inherited from our ancestors, the spiritual heart, and the great existence. Because we have been skillfully maintaining the balance of these three for a long time, we can happily accept the many people and things that cross the sea and come to Japan. This view of history is exactly the message that should be conveyed to the younger generation. Young people are easily traumatized due to various factors. For example, getting along with friends, quarreling with parents, falling out of love, not being able to get an informal job in the company, work content not being as expected, not liking where you are working, having no money. Older people are more or less like this. I have experienced these things, but for people who have relatively little experience in life, no matter what the situation is, it is just painful. The word change of heart is often heard, and people's hearts do change every day. The heart is a consciousness intertwined with experiences and emotions, so it is constantly changing. Speech is born from the human heart, which means that every word a person speaks in a conversation reflects his or her heart. Next, I want to tell young people, I hope you cannot be influenced by anyone's words, and not be manipulated by other people's words. Words come from the heart. As long as you understand this causal relationship, you will not be manipulated. When you are hesitant or troubled, no matter how much you discuss it with the people around you, in the end, please quietly talk to your heart. The voice that comes from your heart is the real you. In addition, I also hope that young people can have a different heart. The Japanese word beauty refers to beauty and has been used as a compliment since ancient times. However, it originally meant different or special object and was scattered in kabuki scripts in the Edo period. From generation to generation, Japanese people have inherited their historical background, cultural and traditional connotations, noble spirituality, unshakable moral heart and other unique qualities. If you have a different kind of heart, you will know how to love others and nature, not follow others, and you can always use the spirit of benefiting yourself and others. Also, don't be stubborn in everything. The so-called stubbornness means that you clearly do not understand the essence of things, but you are self-righteous. Everyone lacks knowledge and wisdom when they are young. When I was a graduate student at Kyoto University, I was engaged in research at the medical chemistry laboratory, but it was always difficult and I was unable to break through the bottleneck. This made me realize that I really have no talent in basic research. However, it would be wrong to say that those days were completely meaningless. Because of that experience, I was able to see many things clearly and become the person I am today. The mistake we often make when we are young is to assume this is how it should be even though we haven't done anything yet. Often because of casual judgment, the choice opportunities that should be available to oneself are lost. Do you feel regretful because of the opportunities you have lost? Actually, it really doesn't have to be. What young people really need is a humble attitude, such as I don't understand myself or my knowledge and wisdom are too insufficient. Even if you expose your shortcomings in front of everyone, it is not a painful thing. This is more enjoyable. As long as you admit that you don't understand, a person who likes to teach will kindly teach you. It doesn't get any more convenient than this. Therefore, if you encounter something you don't understand, please humbly ask for advice. People who are frank and humble will be loved by those around them. Of course, this principle also applies to the middle-aged and senior generations. Don't be swayed by words. With a different heart. Don't be stubborn. Don't follow the crowd and cherish your moral heart that won't waver easily. As long as you ask for advice humbly, you can improve your abilities. The past can be changed. When your mentality changes, your life will change. But most people will always say, this kind of thing is not that easy. Every time I hear this, I feel regretful. However, I actually didn't do anything special myself. So, what can you do to change your life? The answer is enjoy the moment. It's that simple. You may be disappointed after hearing this, but you really only need to do these 4 words, and there is no need to do anything else. Just think about it. If you are living a happy life now, your level of consciousness should be much higher than before. I want to try this, and I also want to do that. Every time I have this hope and expectation, it will bring you to a new stage every time. The last thing you need at this time is the thought of I was so good before or I was useless before. These thoughts are surprisingly strong attachments and are too negative when viewed from a timeline. As long as such emotions exist in the heart, they will never evolve. No matter what happened in the past, we must eliminate the past things from the objects of comparison by enjoying the present. As long as you can enjoy the moment, there is nothing to compare. Once a person has a new experience, the feeling gained at the moment will occupy the largest proportion in all emotional fields. Our bodies have a structure called apoptosis. This is a convenient structure that allows old cells to die and be replaced by new ones. Thanks to apoptosis, our bodies are constantly regenerating day and night, and I think apoptosis plays a role in relationships as well. Old emotions will fade over time and be replaced by new emotions. Everyone grieves when someone close to them dies, but the grief fades over time. This is the so-called time elixir. And this is the emotional apoptosis. If you can't enjoy the present, you can only go backwards and dwell on the glory of the past. If you can enjoy the present, you can change the past. The so-called past is a continuous collection of each person's own consciousness. Although it was sad and painful at the time, it was precisely because of the beginning that we are now, and it is the right way to hold this idea frankly. Changing the past means changing the meaning of what happened in the past. Sometimes we laugh and say, I have forgotten the past. I think this is the attitude that people who want to enjoy a happy life must have. If you don't have any attachments and are always empty-handed, you can gain new experiences. There is a famous saying in the fishing world that is catch and release. People who want to raise their level of consciousness must do this. There is a term in ancient Shinto called Nikkeikin, which means that no matter what happened in the past, it is important to live well in the present. If we expand the explanation, it means that both the past and the future are the continuation of the present. Because time is a collection continuously created by present consciousness, there is no need to cling to the past or the future. Enjoy the moment. As long as you can do this, your life will change. No matter what happens, meaning changes over time. As long as you can enjoy the present, the past will change. Only by not clinging to the past is the mentality you should have to enjoy a happy life. If you don't cling to the past, your hands will be free to welcome new experiences. Conclusion. Better to believe it exists than to believe it doesn't.